Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today it is Sunday, the 24th of August, 2025. I am CareyHolzman and I thank you all for joining me. I hope you're having a great weekend. Very humid and wanting to rain here in Phoenix. And I'm being bitten by mosquitoes that are coming from somewhere I don't know, but you don't normally see a lot of that here in Phoenix. And yeah, we have some big storms potentially coming in the next 4 days. So the next 4 days at the very least are going to be really hot and really humid for us. So I'm going to try and stay indoors as much as possible. Let's see. Hello to everybody joining. Thank you for hanging out, hanging out with us. And a super shout out to our friends Buster and Charlie for their super chats just prior to the show. And hello to Colazzo, Eddie Casanova, Luke Greeny, and Mark Gaines. Luke Greenia. I said that twice. Of course, Mara's hanging out there in the chat. John Williams and Mark Baggett joining us. Jonathan Fells says hello. There's 3D Everything. Viper. David Graham. Ben Laird joining us here in the chat room. I also see Dennis. Andy W6AD, Dazzle555, Elijah 52 Dickens, Jim Kenny, Caniac 44, Doman 2000, and Rick Lakes. There's Rick. How are you? How are ya? Good to see everybody. Today we're doing a review of a mini PC from a company we've never heard of. We don't know where they came from, and it even shipped to us in a plain brown box, which you never know. Could be a really good deal in here. All those fancy boxes cost money, so if they can reduce the cost by reducing the packaging you're just going to throw away anyway, or you're going to send it back in the same box if you don't like it within 30 days, why are we paying extra for that? So that may be a reason why the price is so aggressive on this. I don't know. We're going to find out here during today's show. We're live, unscripted, and unrehearsed. Everything you see is happening in real time without any rehearsals. And if it takes a while for us to get things done, because that's how long it takes in real life to get things done. The world is not a video. If it was, your entire existence would be over in 5 minutes on an edited video. Who would want that? We'd have the life of a fruit fly. Some interesting things going on with YouTube. We are seeing the actions of big companies starting to re-increase the copyright strikes. And this usually is indication of the economy. So when the companies can't make any money, if their business is declining, then they look to point blame at why, and it's usually the first place they'll go to is the easiest with YouTube. And these folks that like Universal Music Group, they're sending out so many copyright notices. It's insane. They'll send out thousands a day. And how YouTube allows this, a lot of them get fought and the content creators are winning, but yet YouTube is not banning them from being basically lexitagious. They're sending out false copyright claims, and doing so is against the law. And YouTube has consequences for that, but apparently when you're as big as UMG, I don't know, somebody's getting paid. There's something happening behind the scenes. And what it's doing is it's taking the revenue out from creators. On top of that, YouTube continues to decrease the amount they're paying to content creators for ads. It's getting to a point now where it's almost insignificant unless you have 1 million subscribers. And then sponsors are just plain out leaving. If you noticed, anybody selling Windows and Office license keys, Tech Syndicate, Tech Yes City, who else? Myself, Toasty Bros, they're not offering them anymore, are they? Go look at whatever content creator in the tech space that you can think of that was offering Windows product keys, and let me know if you find anybody still doing it today. It looks like they pulled out of the YouTube market for some reason. So in the meantime, I still have a source, and I can still get you Windows and Office keys, but we'll handle that privately in email, just so you know it's fine. But it looks like the entity that was primarily providing tech creators with those keys was operating under a half dozen or more different names. It's a privately held company. It's been in business almost 20 years. So it's hard to dig up any information as to what's going on or why they pulled out, or were they banned, or did they pull out? We don't know. Are they coming back? I don't know. It seems like there's a story in there for somebody to cover. It's not a scam or anything like that. It's just very unusual behavior, and they're not really being transparent about what's going on. They told me they were hacked, but I don't know why a hack would take this long to get the system back up and running. And of course, it's affecting, as far as I can tell, every single tech YouTuber. I wouldn't say every single one. The tech YouTubers that are promoting product keys, probably, at least from the ones I watch, 90% of them no longer offer the keys anymore. They're gone. And what I see happening is, coming around the end of this year and coming into 2026, many of these content creators, between the strikes, the reduce in revenue, and the lack of sponsorships, they're going to be closing up. Especially the big ones that have, it's expensive, or they're going to have to really dial down. Sooner or later, we're going to just be in a closet the size of the studio. Will be a walk-in closet, and that'll be all we can afford. But hopefully things will turn around between now and then. I try and stay positive and think, it's all temporary. But temporary could mean 2 years. Temporary could mean 2 months. Seeing some good friends struggling right now, and wish I could help them, but we're kind of paddling along ourselves, and just got to weather the storm. And the storm could be over tomorrow. This YouTube storm, is going to leave behind some bodies. And if you're wondering what's happening to your favorite content creators on YouTube and why they're not making videos anymore, or why they've gone away, they're probably doing what we're doing, which is living off of reducing the frequency and the expenses as much as possible to get us through these tight times, hoping that we can continue to do that until it opens back up again. And it will eventually. And if it doesn't open back up on YouTube, then that's a great opportunity for a competitor to step in and replace YouTube, and then all of us will move over there, so we don't have these YouTube hassles that we're dealing with as creators. But unfortunately, this is the situation. This is the economy, and there's going to be consequences. Some people are already out. Some people ran without any buffer. So if you were running to the penny every month and you lose that sponsor, you're done. It's over. So we'll see what that plays out, but just be aware, the bigger the channel is with regards to their expenses, the harder it's going to be for that channel to make videos as frequently, and eventually not at all, unless something happens. So that's what's going on behind the scenes. We've been dealing with this off camera. We're in talks with some people and trying to figure out what the best strategy is, and with regards to this platform. It does appear to be imploding, but I hope it isn't. I hope whatever it is a slight bump in the road. But if it continues, there's not going to be much left other than just the giant channels. Anybody with 1 million or more subscribers can do fair. You're not going to get rich, but you could do okay. But it would even require them, because they often have editors and writers and such, that their expenses every month have got to be extraordinary. But regardless, just a heads up. And if you look around and you notice things like, hey, where'd the Windows keys go? If you look, I think you're going to see pretty much all wiped out, at least for now, for the last couple weeks. If you go back to videos prior to 2 weeks ago, they were still probably offering the keys, as we were. And then since about 2 weeks ago, not just us, but like I said, Tech Yes City, Tech Syndicate, Toasty Bros. There's probably a lot more I haven't even mentioned. So just a heads up. And then if we get any more information on that, we'll let you know. But we just don't know if it's a voluntary or a mandatory sponsorship removal. The company is tight-lipped about it. So hopefully they're coming back. David Graham said he's been seeing a lot less on YouTube as well. Well, you have to cut your spending, right? So if the amount of money that's coming in from your YouTube videos is significantly lower month after month, at some point you need to realize, well, how can I reduce my spending in order to still continue to do this? And one way is simply don't make as many videos. It costs too much money to make these videos. And people are like, oh, I don't understand. You just turn on a camera and go, no. No. The only people that would say that are people that have never done it. And remember, I cannot work my full-time job. I cannot work my other job, is what I should call it. It's not full-time. But I can't go out and get any more customers to actually do physical computer work for companies and take on new clients if I'm here making videos 5 hours a day. There's no time left for me to do that. So if I go out and I do the other thing, then there's no time left for me to do this. Unless somebody else is paying the bills, this is pretty much every content creator that's an adult, the same issue we all have, unless they have a trust fund. You know, even content creators that were really, really big, wealthy, and successful are gone now. I mean, I'm thinking of like Whistling Diesel. I really enjoyed Whistling Diesel's page, and I never understood how he could pay for it unless he's somehow got rich parents or something. And then, you know, greed got the best of him. He got into like day trading and then just completely ruined his reputation with his audience, as he was seen as somebody that was a straight shooter. And then he did something uncharacteristic and pretty much self-inflicted his own issue. So he's gone. We're seeing it over and over again where it's like content creators are getting desperate, some are, to fulfill that income they need to. And Whistling Diesel's content was very expensive. So how is he getting the money? If it ain't coming from YouTube, it ain't. If it's not coming from YouTube, if it's not coming from membership, if it's not coming from sponsorships, and even if some of it is, you know, he's destroying a $120,000 Cybertruck just for a video. How do you pay for that? He sets a Ferrari on fire in another video. Not to mention he's got editors, right? He's got to pay them. People to edit the video, put it all together, do all of his YouTube stuff. He doesn't do that. So I'm seeing it everywhere. And I don't want to sound the alarm, and I don't want to say, you know, the sky is falling, but something's definitely happening. And it's not just happening to one channel, and it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. If it's computers or cars, whatever it is, they're all starting to sink. And hopefully, whatever this is, I hope we'll get over it by 2026. Because if we enter 2026 in the same state, a lot of us aren't going to be around anymore. So it is what it is, and we all have to figure something out that's right for each of us. But in the meantime, I don't intend on going anywhere, but there may be a decrease in the number of videos I make. I don't want there to be. I do not want there to be. But it is what it is. And so we'll just let you know, as things change for better or for worse, as we notice different trends or we see opportunities, we'll let you know. We are working on it. Okay? So just a heads up. Planet Cryos with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Planet Cryos. He says, I feel you and everyone. You'll be seeing much less of me as people have been money tight in no time. I might start a live EV channel for my new Ford Lightning. I'm not sure I will. I'd be interested in what it's like to own an electric vehicle. I'm a little afraid of them. Let's see. I'm looking through the chat here before we get started. Paul Vercher joins us and says hello. Mike Carden joins us and says hello. Michael Brown is there in the chat joining us. Lara the Bear says hello. Welcome in, everybody. Elijah Dickens says lots of ads on YouTube, more so Carey. So the only thing I can tell you about the ads, I want you to think of it like this. If an advertiser pays $200 for an ad and people are using ad blockers, which if you go back a couple years, I said if you guys keep using ad blockers, then the value of the advertising goes down. So what you're doing is you're increasing the number of ads. In order to make the same $200 now, instead of showing you one ad, they're going to show you three and make it more difficult for you to block those ads. And YouTube did that whole thing, but a lot of media press from YouTube about how they're going to punish ad blockers. And they got a lot of lashback from that, which was costing them as much or more money than the ad blockers. So they said, okay, we're not going to focus too much on that. We're going to find another way. So the other way they found is to simply add more ads. So if one ad is now worth $25 instead of $200, they have to show you 8 ads in order to make the same amount of money, because those who aren't using the ad blockers that are left have reduced the value of the ads to now an eighth of whatever they were. On top of that, if those ads are not effective, and it's deemed by the sponsors that YouTube is a complete toilet of flushing money away with no end results, then the ads go away entirely and you can kiss monetization goodbye for content creators. But monetization has already been reduced to such an infinitesimal little number. It's down more than 90% of what it was a few years ago. So if you could make a living on YouTube a few years ago and you still have the same audience and you haven't grown, you likely cannot make ends meet anymore and you have to go get a job. You cannot do YouTube full time unless you have another source of income coming in. But if your channel's growing and if you continue to march forward and keep your expenses low, then you never relied on the ads that much to begin with, right? So it's kind of a back and forth. Channels of a certain size are still getting 90% less, but they can make it up with individual sponsorships from corporations that want to buy their audience. I don't sell my audience. They could make it up with merch. We don't really have much in the way of merch, little couple things, that's all. And I don't really talk about it. And they can make it up with memberships and super chats and things like that. So give it another year, and I think this is going to look very different. So I personally, I have a YouTube Premium account, so I don't watch the ads. So that's why I look a little confused when you mention it, because I'm like, I don't see ads. What are you talking about? But for $10 a month, you don't have to watch the ads. I realize that when we do videos for public, the advertising's on because somebody has to pay for it. Unfortunately, we cannot turn the ads off for some viewers, like our members. So instead, what we do is we turn videos to members only, and all of the advertising or monetization is disabled in those videos. So at least if members are not YouTube Prime members, they can at least just watch members only videos and know there's no ads in any of those. But for everyone else, and especially if we want to keep the videos public, we have to put the ads on. And if it used to be we could make a certain amount of money from 2 ads, you now have to see about 4 times more ads for us to just stay exactly where we were, which is at 90% less than where we were a couple years ago. So we don't have any control over those rates, and we don't have any control over the ads. Only you guys do. So, or we go fully members only. If we go fully members only and we stop with the public videos, these kind of reviews aren't going to happen anymore. The only reason we have this to review is the company reached out and asked us, if they sent it to us, would we review it? And that was the only condition. There's no money involved, there's no contract, there's no NDA, This is exactly as it appears, as if we bought it ourselves. But we don't have the budget to do that anymore. Those are all days of past now. Right now, we're just trying to make sure we can stay online. So again, this isn't just us. You're going to notice it. It's only started to happen. So it'll be interesting when you watch Tech Syndicate or Tech Yes City, or who else did I mention? Any of those channels, you might notice the frequency of videos goes down and the studio gets smaller, or people have to downsize. So, all right. David Graham with a $5 super chat. I see YouTube channels that have 15 or more ad breaks. Thank God I have premium. Yeah, I don't know how you'd know that they have ad breaks. Like, because I have premium, I'm not even aware of it. Eric says, ad providers only have themselves to blame. I remember early 2000s, I installed Ad Muncher on every single customer's computers. The pop-ups were crazy, and that was over 20 years ago. Yeah, pop-ups were pretty bad, but they're still pretty bad. If you try to go to any news website today, it's hard to tell what's news from what's a commercial, what's an advertisement, because they look like news stories. And on the border, all around the web page will be filled with ads. And I'm talking Fox News, CNN News. Everybody is basically doing it. And then websites that were free are now saying, hey, if you want to read the news story, you've got to subscribe to us. And well, there was a little bit of that, back a couple years ago with like Wall Street Journal. Now, it seems like it's rare to find a news site that doesn't require a subscription. You get to read a couple of stories for free, and after that, you've got to pay for it. They're putting up paywalls. It is universal. It's a struggle across the board. If there's going to be advertising supported content, you have to have the ads. If people aren't clicking on the ads and the ads aren't working, then you need more ads, worth less, so the advertisers can still afford to pay for those ads. But if those ads are resulting in no response, or the ads cost more than the amount of money they're making, then the ads go away. Ad Muncher isn't even around anymore. Ad Muncher went out of business years ago. It was a tough business for everybody because the consumers consumers overall, they want it for free and they don't care who's paying for it, just not them. And there's only so much water you can take out of the well before the well is dry. If nobody's putting any water back in that well or drilling down deeper when the time comes, the greed that exists is going to have the same result every single time. And since we cannot control that behavior, we simply have to prepare for it. And when I say we, I'm talking about every single content provider online. Whether it's a news agency, whether it's media, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, TikTok. They have to come up with a new business model, one that works. And this business model kind of worked for a little bit, but it's not working in 2025. In fact, it hasn't worked since pretty much the pandemic is when it went south. And so they've been on life support and just going steadily down for about 4 years. So we'll see what happens. But we're not going to change consumer behavior. So if we know the consumer behavior overall is take as much as you can grab, then they have to limit how much any single consumer can take and evaluate how much each viewer is costing them. And who knows, maybe they'll come up with something else, but there's got to be another way. There's got to be. Otherwise, there won't be anything left. But it'll be replaced with something else. MySpace, when it went away, did anybody notice? There were a lot of places, GeoCities, right, where you could make your own website. Who does that anymore? So things come and go in this industry, and it's just part of it. And YouTube may end up being one of those things. Well, YouTube is the second most visited platform on the internet worldwide. It won't stay that way. They're just having their moment. Amazon's the #1 retailer in the United States. Them and Walmart. It won't stay that way. Target is suffering. They just fired their CEO. All of it's temporary. You know, for a while, Sears and Kmart were leaders. Not so much now. And so, or Toys R Us. These things have their day in the sun, and then if they don't steer the ship to keep it afloat, it capsizes. It's a very delicate thing, and so we find ourselves here in the water with a much smaller ship. It's a lot easier for us to navigate. But you know, first thing we want to know is we look around and say, is this happening to other people or just us? Happening across the board. So if you look at Rick Beato has a YouTube channel where he talks about music, as does the Professor of Rock. They might be saying goodbye to YouTube here before too long. It's at a point now where it's costing them money to make the videos. They're not making money from the videos anymore. Or the amount of money they're making versus the amount of money it costs to create the video, edit the video, upload the video, and then pay for an attorney to file counterclaims against all of the false copyright allegations that are abusing the copyright laws, violating the law from a big, you know, Universal Media Group, which basically buys off the United States Congress so they can have laws passed in their favor. It's going to be a very tough David and Goliath situation there when you got such a powerful entity. But if that powerful entity is behaving that way, it's usually because they're bleeding out, and it's like a death crawl. It's like they're spending all this money in filing all of these false copyright claims in order to pull back money. But they're going to realize before too long that you're only going to pull back about $4 from one creator, $30 from another creator, and the amount it's costing them to send this out is going to end up costing them more than any amount they're going to make back. They'll figure it out, and they're going to see that they're bleeding more money while they're trying to stop bleeding money, and that's just going to make them weaker and weaker. So they're going to have to change their strategy and do the opposite. Like Universal Media Group should be offering sponsorship to Rick Beato. These are the same companies that pay PR people to get a band that they want to promote onto a traditional network television talk show. That band has a new album. The band is going to play for, you know, one of the late night talk shows. They don't go after them for a copyright claim. If you've got a guy like Professor of Rock or Rick Beato that are doing these historical interviews with the creators of the music, but yet the publishers are saying that's ours and you can't use it, even though the creator who made it, wrote it, sang it, you know, you can have a producer, somebody like Alan Parsons or somebody like what's his name, Rick Rubinstein, who have produced 15, 20 songs that they produced hundreds, but maybe they want to talk about a little bit about Pink Floyd, they want to talk a little bit about the Beatles, they're going to talk about blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, every time they pay a clip to discuss, hey, what about on this song when you produced it, it's a different band, but it's the same producer. Then he gets 15 different copyright takedown notices or strikes. And sometimes he gets another 15, one from the distributor and one from the publisher for the same song, that the person he's interviewing is the one who created it. So it is insane. So he's got to fight all of those. If he doesn't fight them and he doesn't take the video down after 3 strikes, and you know, if there's 15 strikes on one video, think about it. That one video, they erase his whole channel. All 2,000 videos, his entire history on YouTube is wiped out. So what choice does he have? He has to pay for an attorney. Attorneys aren't cheap. And I assure you, that attorney's making a lot more money an hour than Rick Beato ever made. If I was Universal Music Group, I'd reach out to Rick and say, you do great work. You know your stuff. We'd like to work with you. We'll send the artist to you that we want to promote. Even if it's an artist that hasn't made a song in 40 years. Those albums still sell today, and it's going to be hard to get them booked on a regular network talk show. Network television is dying as well. All of the regular viewership that used to watch TV is moving to their phones. So you're going to see more and more television shows canceled, or they're going to be slimmed down so that they cost less. Universally across the board, our culture is shifting. How we watch and consume content is shifting. And these companies have to figure out how to adapt to that or die. And we're in the same position, and so is everybody I know that does this. unless they're doing it just for fun on a weekend. Like if I had a regular, if my regular job was full time and I was working Monday through Friday, I might take a Sunday and make a show, but I won't be making any money from that. That'll just be me blowing off some steam. And if that's what it becomes, that's what it becomes, but it won't go anywhere. But I do feel for somebody like Rick Beato or somebody like, or even Gamers Nexus, their video was taken down where the president was speaking, and the only people that were filming the president, it was a private, you don't just get to go in the White House and film the president. You got to get permission. So Bloomberg company got permission. They were there. They filmed the president's speech. Gamers Nexus used a piece of that speech as fair use because it's part of a documentary. He did a 3.5-hour documentary on black market GPUs and how China's still getting banned GPUs that aren't supposed to be there. And within a day or two, he got a copyright takedown notice from Bloomberg that he used their footage of the president speaking when there was nobody else, I don't think, there to film it other than Bloomberg. And Bloomberg didn't, the president wasn't talking to Bloomberg. The president was talking to America. And it's Bloomberg's job to distribute that news. And so when you take a clip from the news, just as Rick Beato would take a clip of music from somebody who wrote the music, it's there to give full all of the information to your audience. Like, where are you coming from and where did you get this idea? Well, here's the public fact, right? This is known information. And if you just haven't seen it, here it is. So now if you look, a lot of people, I've seen about a half dozen channels have republished Gamers Nexus video. And Gamers Nexus didn't tell them to do that. I've seen people create YouTube channels that are completely fake. They only have one video, and it's Gamers Nexus. And it's the one that was taken down. Now, Gamers Nexus has an attorney, and they're fighting it, but this takes time. So in the meantime, I bet Gamers Nexus isn't too happy with other people getting views that his video would have gotten. They're taking his views. But as long as his video's been taken down while this is being worked out, he's getting 0 views on the video. So the attitude of the viewer is, I'm going to help him even though they may be hurting him. And I'm going to republish his video. And if he asks me to take it down, I will. But otherwise, I'm not turning any monetization on, so there's nothing for Bloomberg to claim financially. And this is a big middle finger to Bloomberg. So let's all join in and let's all post this content. And Gamers Nexus hasn't said a peep. He hasn't said not to do it. He hasn't said it's a good idea. He hasn't said he doesn't like it. There's been no word from him on this. So as he continues to stay silent, more and more people are posting. And they're using throwaway accounts because YouTube is so easy to abuse from not only big corporations, but even the little hacker guys. You know, they could be 6 years old. They can create an account where they're underage and they're not allowed. There's no age verification. There's no verification the person's actually a real person. They could be a bot, or that the account is real and sincere or doesn't have an agenda like a commercial. And eventually YouTube catches on, but that takes time too. So by the time all of this takes place, it's no longer an issue. We've all moved on to something else. What a mess. And if you look at the quality of the Gamers Nexus documentary, it's done like a professional television show. You would never guess this was a content creator on YouTube. There's intro credits and there's music in the background, and it looks like something you'd see on network television. And it's 3.5 hours long, which means they probably sifted through, I would guess, more than 20 hours of footage to edit that down to just be left with 3.5 hours. You got to think about how much content did they source in order to boil it down, to condense it to 3.5 hours. Think of what that cost for your editors, for your person holding the camera, for Steve himself, for the people who write the show, and now the attorney cost. How's that going to work? So yeah, it's a very frustrating time to be a content creator for everybody who's a content creator. What a mess. John Downey says, can you set up Threadripper to host the videos? Well, who's going to pay for the bandwidth? We're not Google. We don't have, 100 gigabit lines coming in for internet access. So if I set up, and it wouldn't have to be Threadripper. The problem isn't the computer. The problem is the bandwidth. How many of you have an internet connection that has a faster than 35 megabit per second upload? If we're hosting videos ourselves, and let's say we have unlimited bandwidth, most of you don't. Most of you have bandwidth limitations. Most of you will not have 35 gig upload speeds. So most of you couldn't even do this if you wanted to. What I can do is I can even use a NAS and set up some kind of Plex server, and then individually give access to a certain number of people that my bandwidth will support. I would guess no more than 20 people. And that's it. Aside from that, we'd have to spend, we'd have to go to AWS and rent a server, and then we'd pay for the bandwidth. I would imagine somewhere around $6,000 to $10,000 a month. Then on top of that, we'd have to create an interface for people to be able to log in and use. That's the last I checked, to get that code written, plus the storage space we need, is around $90,000 to $125,000. So yeah, just hosting it out of your house, you're just not going to have the bandwidth to accommodate a lot of people. If you look at what your download rate is right now when you're watching this video, and you look at the Specs for Nerds part of YouTube, you can see how much you're pulling down. So if you're pulling down, I don't know, 6 gigs per second or whatever it works out to be, and we have a total of 130 maximum before things start stuttering and staggering, before we just get too busy. It's, too many people on the ship's gonna canter, and then it's gonna flip, and it's gonna capsize. That's what ends up happening when you overload your bandwidth, is everything starts to get buffering and then dropping connections. So if everybody's, let's say, doing 6 gigs per second, and we can maximize at most 130, that means about 20 people can watch at any given time. It's not going to work. We've got 200 people, we've got 10 times that watching us right now. So it's not a computer issue. I've got computers that can handle that. I don't have internet service that can handle that. Rip City Raider became a supporter. Right on. Thank you for that, Rip City Raider. Dennis said, I have 2 cloud servers. Can I help? Yeah, I don't know what your bandwidth limitations are in those cloud servers. And what'll usually end up happening with cloud servers is you're paying for a certain, unless yours is set up differently, you're paying for the bandwidth that you're using. So if we were to move data or videos over to your channel, and we could actually get viewers to find them, right? Because remember, people are finding our videos because of YouTube notifications, a little bit of the algorithm maybe recommending or suggesting the videos. All that goes away now. We have to somehow figure out a way to get the viewers notice that, hey, there's a new video, but you have to go over here to watch it. And then if a lot of people end up doing that, which of course is what I want, you might find your cloud servers are being hammered, and you might get a bill at the end of the month for $10,000, depending on if you're hosting your own cloud servers or who's hosting them and what are the limitations. You don't want to find out the hard way when you get a bill at the end of the month for the amount of bandwidth that you've used. This has happened to a number of people that thought that they could just easily do that. It'll either, one of two things will happen. Three things. No one will go there because they don't know, or they don't trust it. They don't know if it's real. You're going to get a surprise bill in the mail. Just like you used a lot more electricity than you normally use. They don't shut your electricity off necessarily. You just get a really large bill in the mail, and it's your responsibility to pay it. Or they put a bandwidth lock that says, this is it, And then everybody trying to watch those videos starts complaining to me that they can't watch them. They play, they stop, they play, they stop. You can't even use your own cloud servers. And you say this isn't going to work, and there's no way to turn it off. People are still going to forever keep going to your cloud servers. And the only way you're going to be able to fix that is to, like, the equivalent would be like if your phone number got out. The only solution is to change your phone number. So you appreciate the offer, but there's some serious consequences, some big downsides to that. This is a very expensive thing to put together. And YouTube can make it work because they have such a large scale. They're owned by Google. That's, you know, got a lot of money. YouTube is making money for Google, but it's making less. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So I appreciate the idea. Dennis says unlimited. Yeah, it's never unlimited, though. There's no such thing as unlimited. There's always limits. And usually what'll happen is the videos, after a certain number of viewers start watching simultaneously and over a certain period of time, the bandwidth, see, that's costing one-on-one more money. And that's going to draw attention to one-on-one. And they're going to say, look at this account. They're affecting all the other accounts now, are all starting to complain. We're getting support calls where people are saying, unrelated people, we don't know who they are, saying, hey, the internet seems slow, unresponsive, our website's just not as fast. So the one-on-one techs are going to look at that. They're going to find the source of what's pulling everything down. And then they're going to, oh, it's this account right here. And they're going to put a bandwidth lock on your account. And you're going to get an email that says, you know, you're abusing the system, is the way they see it. So likely they wouldn't shut you down, but they'd let you know we're putting a cap on this. All right, and then all of the complaints from the other people that were being affected on one-on-one, those go away. But then the new complaints from the people that are trying to watch the videos on your end won't go away. Cell phones will do this with unlimited data, right? Your first 5 gigs or 10 gigs of data in your plan is high speed, and then anything after that is at a much lower rate. It's pretty much the same thing. It's still unlimited, but much slower after you reach a certain point. And it's usually the point where it starts affecting other people. And then those other people reach out to the company and go, hey, the service I'm getting ain't high speed. Then the company has to look into it, figure out what happened, if they got a bad piece of equipment, or if they have a user that's using it in a way it wasn't intended. And then they have to do what they have to do. It's a big circle. Rusmir in the chat says, I have a Maximus 8 Hero motherboard and an M.2 Patriot 240 gig and an ADATA 240 gig with Windows 10 Pro. How to install Windows 11 in an M.2 with dual boot. I don't support dual booting here. I don't recommend it. I won't support it. If somebody brings a dual boot machine to me, I'm going to say you got to pick one or the other. I won't do them both. I'd have to charge you twice as much. Your repair will take twice as long, and your support will come in twice as often. If you choose to do such a thing, you could change your BIOS boot order and change drive 1 to be your boot drive, and then go in your BIOS and change to drive 2 to be your boot drive. And you can install Windows 10 on one drive, Windows 11 on another. I kind of feel like to me, that's like, I don't know, it feels very old-fashioned. It feels like 1998, and you want to run DOS, and you want to run, you know, OS2 or something, not OS2, CPM. These days, we have virtual machines, and it makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, to go ahead and choose one or the other as your main operating system and put any other operating system inside of it as a program. So you can have Windows 10 that you run and launch in a window in Windows 11, or the other way around, or for Linux, or for whatever you want. Other than that, I would say if you really insist on going down a path that I cannot join you on, I would recommend that you simply type a search into Google or use Copilot and follow advice that I would never give you, because you're never going to get it from me. You'll find it other places, but you won't find that here. There's a reason why we don't talk about it. because I don't recommend it. So I don't want to be responsible or be the one to blame when you realize what a nightmare you just made for yourself. You think about all the drivers you have to install here, you now have to do the same thing. All the updates you got to install, it never ends. You've just doubled the amount of work you have to do, and you've increased your risk of security concerns. And on top of that, you're going to have a hard time remembering which things are on which drive. Eventually it becomes overwhelming. You will eventually say, this is a really bad idea. I am tired of it. And you're free to experience that, but you will experience it without me joining you on that ride. I've been down that road. I don't like that road. I don't want to go down that road anymore. But there are plenty of other YouTube videos and lots of other places, websites that can walk you through that misery if that's what you choose to do. Now, what I would do if I needed a Windows 10 computer and a Windows 11 computer is I would have two computers. I'd have Windows 10 on that one, Windows 11 on that one. Then I'd use a KVM switch to switch between them. That's the only way I would ever do that outside of maybe a virtual machine. Hey, there's Mats Olaf. Thank you for your PayPal contribution, Mats Olaf. So what we're looking at is a mini PC from a company we've never heard of before. I looked at the specs. It's brand new, so I think there's only one review on it. Let me show you what this looks like. Let's go to our window capture. There it is. A company called Getorli. This is an AMD Ryzen 3550H. So it's a couple years old as far as the tech goes, but still faster like an than a Celeron, like an N150, N100. This is going to be much faster and more upgradable. This comes with 16 gigs of RAM, not 8 gigs of RAM. It has 512 gig solid state drive, not 256, which again, when we look at a lot of those Intel N100s, N150s, you were looking around the same price tag, and you're not getting as fast of a processor or as upgradable as a processor, meaning this processor can have dual channel RAM, an Intel N100 or N150 or even an N300. It's all single channel RAM. They're very, very limited processors, and they do that to bring the price down. So AMD as the competitor comes out with something that initially when it came out was a lot more money, but apparently it's still available here. So manufacturers can choose this as a very inexpensive component to help keep the price down while giving the consumer more. This does support 4K video resolution, 60 Hertz. It has two HDMI ports, Type-C, USB. It's USB 3.2. It's got a regular LAN jack and Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 5. Now those are a couple of years old. We're now on Wi-Fi 7, and I think Bluetooth is 6.2. I can't remember what the latest version of Bluetooth is. But if you don't mind getting a couple generations behind, you're really not going to miss that much in the way of performance. Like I said, when this was brand new, this chip, these computers were probably closer to $300, $400. So just nothing's changed on the chip. It's just time has passed, and it's a brand new machine. It's not like it's used or old. It's just using technology that is worth a lot less, because the chips that have come out since this chip give you a lot more bang for the buck, but they're also going to cost a bit more. So if we're trying to get the best value for the lowest amount of money, and that's the key, there's best value for a certain amount of money. This is best value for the lowest amount of money. We were looking at a machine the other day that was about $10 more than this. So this one's about 10 bucks cheaper. And this is what happens when you're not paying a brand name tax, right? If they're going to compete, they've got to give you a reason to buy them when you've never heard of them before. And the best way they're going to do that is by offering you better value. Lucky Gold Star was a value brand back in the VCR days, Gold Star. And they were seen kind of like Emerson, just like kind of a cheaper, not as well made, not as good of quality. But it turned out they were pretty good quality and they were pretty well made. And before you know it, they changed Gold Star's name back to Lucky Gold Star, or LG, and it's considered one of the top, most respected brands in televisions today. Maybe not so much in refrigerators and appliances, but in televisions. And the same would hold true with Korean cars. And this is how it all starts. You offer your customer better value than the big names, and if you're good at it, you become the big name. All right, so Getorli, the name of the company, it's got Windows 11, Ryzen 5 3550H, and a little bit about the information here, about the specifications, I mean. And if we look down and see any sort of reviews, more specifications, 4-core 8-thread processor. It's a 2.5 gig LAN. That's surprising. Usually at this price, I'd expect a 1 gig LAN, mainly because people that buy at this price don't have 2.5 gig networks. It doesn't really make any sense to have that. But on the other hand, for this price, it feels like you're getting a little extra, but you're not paying for it. And it gives you something to grow into. A little bit here about the RAM is DDR4. Again, some people are fixated with the latest technology. Well, it doesn't take DDR5. Well, if you want to spend $500, you can get one that takes DDR5. I don't want to spend $500. Well, then you don't want DDR5, because DDR5 would not benefit you with a processor any lower than that. There would be no difference in performance. It's a psychological marketing technique that has you brainwashed and tranced to thinking that that's desirable and meaningful to you, when only if your processor is of a certain level would DDR5 give you any difference of benefit. And even then, it would be very difficult to measure outside of a benchmark. But you can measure it in your wallet for sure. That's what marketing companies do. Now, at a certain point, when you get to Ryzen 9s or Intel Core i9s, if you're using DDR4, it's probably holding the processor back. If you're at that level, you definitely want DDR5. When you're at this level, you definitely don't want it, because it's adding expense and giving you nothing in return. Let's see. This looks like we've got, it should have dual channel RAM in here. We'll have to open it up and look. It's showing a 16 gig module. So the reason this is important is a manufacturer has two choices. They can give you two 8 gig modules to get you to 16, and that will enable dual channel mode, an option not available on the Intel N series of processors, N100, N150, N95, N97, et cetera, et cetera. It's a single channel only. So if they put two 8 gig modules in here, you get the added performance of dual channel, but on a processor of this caliber, probably doesn't make much difference. So what makes more sense when you think about it, if you want to give your customer more value, you go, this is 16 gigs. This is not going to hold this processor up at all. But if you're pushing this machine to its extremes and you want to double your memory, you only have to add another 16. You don't have to pull the two 8s out and then go and buy two 16s. Now you just need to buy one 16. That makes your upgrade path much cheaper. And most people will never do that on a machine of this caliber, because it just doesn't make any sense. But you can, and it's nice that they thought of that. On the front of it, we've got two USB 3.2 Type A's. There's a USB Type C that's also 3.2. A front port audio jack, which means it's a headphone, microphone, headset jack, power button. On the back, there's our, this says 1 gig RJ45. See, I believe that's probably 1 gig. See the 1000? And up there, it said it was 2.5. Yeah, here it says 2.5. So somewhere there's a mistake. And I am surprised to see a machine of this caliber and at this price with 2.5 gig, because I don't think anybody who buys it, well, I don't think the vast majority of people who would buy this would even know what 2.5 gig means, let alone have any need for it. But regardless, down here it was mentioning it was 1,000 gigabit LAN. So there's a mistake somewhere. We're going to find out when we open this up. You've got a USB 2.0, USB 3.0. 2.0 is what I use for keyboard and mouse. I keep my high-speed ports for flash drives or higher speed devices. We have two HDMI ports and a barrel connector. This looks a lot like what we looked at on Friday. Very similar. Boy, I'd have a hard time telling them apart, except this one is about $10 cheaper. I don't know what the support is like. I do know that you can buy it from Amazon, and Amazon will sell it with the 30-day free returns. So that way you can decide for yourself if you're satisfied with this brand. If you're not, you should know that within 30 days you can return it in full for free back to Amazon for a 100% return of your money. But beyond that, if you keep it and you have a problem with it, a year down the road, I don't know what kind of support you're going to get, when it'll probably cost you $50 or $60, maybe $70 to mail it back. And then on top of that, you'll have to be without it. Well, it gets repaired and replaced, and that's assuming that's even an option. It just doesn't make any sense once these are out of a warranty. For the rare occasion that it would fail, it's basically disposable from my perspective. But I don't know. I'm going to assume the worst only because I just don't know if this brand has any US repair facility or how they would handle that. I see a lot of people who seem to believe that whether they spent $149 on a computer or $4,000 on a computer, they should get the same level of support. It doesn't work that way. If they're trying to get this price down, one of the ways they can do that is by removing support cost. So anytime you buy a computer at this price range, not just from this manufacturer, literally any manufacturer at this price range is going to basically give you zero support. It would be rare to find one that could, because that'll end up costing them more money to pay for the labor in the support cost than how much money do you think they're making off of this? I mean, they still got to pay for the box to ship it in and the postage to get it to you. And this has Windows 11 already on it. So how does that math make any sense? On the other hand, in my experience, these computers run well beyond their use case scenario. I wouldn't be surprised that this thing still runs 20 years from now. I don't know why you'd be using it 20 years from now. I would think that would be profoundly foolish, but it's usually not the tech that gives out. It's just that it can't keep up after a certain period of time. And then you replace it. So I would estimate a machine like this realistically probably has a useful lifespan of about 6 years. Once you're 6 years old on this, regardless that it still works great, it's probably going to be really lacking behind another $150 computer 6 years from now, which will blow this one out of the water with a new warranty, be much faster, more storage, more memory, everything will be faster, more capable, faster USB, et cetera, more secure online, et cetera. Okay, so just set your expectations accordingly. You do get what you pay for in most cases in this industry. There are still scammers out there. There are still brand name taxes that people pay for Sony, for Apple. And if you want to pay those brand name taxes, I'm not here to tell you not to. Those companies also have a lot of money for marketing and manipulation. So public manipulation through marketing is a great way to drive sales and create a desire through psychological means. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in the practical cost for, what am I getting for my money? Where's the value? And if the value is emotional, I'm not interested. If the value is practical, that's what I'm all about. And that's what I'm here to show you today. So I want you to know what we're looking at, the way I'm looking at it. And the way I'm looking at it is this a product that I could recommend to my customers? Or is this a product that if I recommended it to my customers, it would make me look like I'm either not a very good tech, or my recommendations aren't trustworthy, or they're going to call me when they have problems and expect me to fix it for free because I'm the one who sold it to them. In other words, it reflects on me as a person. Would I recommend this to a customer? Would I stake my reputation on that? Because a customer just trusting me, right? They're saying, I don't know Getorli from Asus. I don't know who these companies are. You're speaking a different language. So we're going to pay you and ask you for your advice. And then if we have any problems, we're going to call you because you're the one who recommended it to us. My goal today is to find out, is this potentially a product that I would stand behind and recommend? Or would I run far from it? Since I cannot rely on a company's support. In other words, if I buy an Asus mini PC or MSI, one of the bigger brand names that cost more, and the customer has a problem with it, customer's going to call me. They're not going to call Asus or MSI. If you don't have me and you just bought this off Amazon, it's been more than 30 days, who are you going to call? Anybody you call that's not the company, you're going to have to pay them. And if they're $100 an hour, and this is a $150 computer, would that make any sense for you to do that? If you reach out to the company, if you send them an email and you don't get a response, what can you do? Nothing. You're powerless. So because I'm being held accountable, I'm the one who's going to get the call. And even if I can reach out to Asus and MSI, I can't wait. I have to resolve the customer's problem now or as soon as possible, or the customer may take their business somewhere else if I take too long. So for me personally, I don't really care too much about after sale support. I care about those first 30 days. For the most part, if everything's fine in the first 30 days, more than likely, and with few exceptions, it's going to last far longer than we need it. And if we get at least a year out of it and it fails and we're out of warranty, you know what? It was only $150. Just buy another one. It's cheaper and faster to just simply get a replacement. You can even order it from Amazon again and have it at your door the next day. And you end up paying, $12 a month for the thing. I'd say you got your money's worth. And that's highly unlikely. That's going to happen to some people. It will. Statistically, somebody is going to be affected by that. But most people would never have that issue. So that's like a worst case scenario. So when I talk about practicality, that's what I'm referring to, right? I'm looking at today, next month, next year. At what point do I feel like I got my money's worth out of it? After 1 year, I get my money's worth out of it. So if I deploy 6 or 7 of these and they all die within the first year, and if I have to replace those under warranty at my cost to save me from losing customers who are already inconvenienced by me having to be called to begin with, it can very easily put me out of business. So I have to check things out very thoroughly. That's what we're going to do today, and that's why. Andy says, as WoWe P5 continues to chug along, as I would expect. All right, are we ready for the unboxing? Let me go to camera 2. There it is. Move this aside. And let me get my glasses so as I can read the box. So here's how the Getorli GT100 arrives. It's just a plain brown box. And we have a piece of tape here. I've cut before the show, but I've never opened this before. So let's see what's inside. I'm going to guess there's some documentation in there. Here's our mini PC. And then this is probably our power supply in here, if I had to guess. This is a short HDMI cable. This is our power brick. Remember, I'm not a fan of these power bricks that plug directly into the wall because they can block other outlets and limit how many things you can plug in. And then the cable here is usually too short for me to run from the wall to the desk. So I'm not a fan of these, but I do expect these on budget computers because they're cheaper to manufacture. And you do get what you pay for in the industry. There's extension cords you can plug on here, or that I would plug on for me, in order to make them reach a permanent install. I don't know why they simply couldn't give us a longer cable. But usually, like with a laptop, you have a cable that plugs in from the wall into your brick, and then out of your brick is a different cable that plugs into the laptop. That's my personal preference, because that enables you to buy instead of the plug being built in, you can add your own cable. And even if this cable's still 4 feet long on this end, they're still including a 5-foot power cable that's a total of 9 feet. And if that's still not long enough, I can just buy a replacement cable and extend that to the length of what's offered pre-manufactured just on Amazon from anybody. So these are far more limited, but that's also they cost less to make them, and that helps reduce the overall cost of the unit. I think that's all we got in here. Yeah, that's it. So then my only remaining question is what's in here. We've got very generic looking user manual without any manufacturer name on it. It does include a VESA mounting bracket, which is probably why they give you the short HDMI cable if you want to mount the mini PC behind your monitor, get it off of your desk, and make it look like you have it all in one. A lot of times when I do these reviews, I like to keep the box out so people that are tuning in can see what we're reviewing. That's a plain brown box with a plain instruction manual. So the manufacturer's definitely not boasting their brand. Let's take a look at the PC itself. Interesting color. It's almost a bluish gray. 2 HDMIs out, your barrel power connector, USB 3, USB 2. Ethernet, we'll have to plug it in to see if that's 1 or 2.5 gig. We have a BIOS reset, CMOS reset pinhole right here. We have 2 more USB 3.2s, USB 3 Type-C, 3.5 millimeter audio jack, headset, microphone, headphones, whatever you want to use. Power button. We have a micro SD card reader here. We have a Kensington lock here, so you can secure this from theft. Some people are worried if they set this on their desk that somebody could just swipe it. So you can buy a $10 Kensington lock, which is basically a bicycle lock, and it locks into this little hole here. On one end, you turn the key and metal spikes come out, and then the other end of the cable you would loop up and secure it to a leg of the table or maybe something mounted into the floor, just like a bicycle lock. Same way. Now here on the bottom, we've got rubber feet and we've got the screws not being covered by the rubber feet. I am a big fan of that. And we're going to do things a little differently today. And I want to start by seeing if I can... Those holes are so tiny. You're going to need a narrow screwdriver to get down in there. And I just so happen to have one. Now, normally, I would not open this up until I verified it works. Because now that I'm opening it, if we turn this on and it doesn't work, is it because of something I didn't realize I've done by opening it that caused it to not work? Or did it not work right out of the gate? So I don't recommend that you guys do anything to open up any new computer regardless until you've turned it on and verified it works properly. And then after you open it up, if it doesn't work anymore, you know whose fault that is. Because I'm doing it in the wrong order, if there's any reason this doesn't turn on, I will never know if I caused it or if it was shipped to me that way, which is why you should never do this in this order. We have a pull tab right here, and if I pull up on it, and notice the pull tab is towards the back. Last time I couldn't remember which way it faced. And that does not want to come off. I mean, I'm pulling, I got nothing. And you don't want to use too much force because this could be, this could have the Wi-Fi antennas glued to it. And if you rip on this and pull it, you're going to break the wires right off your Wi-Fi antennas. So we need to open this up and take a look and see what's going on in here first. And there does appear to be some plastic clips. Something right here is holding us in. Right over here. I feel like between the screws and the pull tab, whatever clips they're using are unnecessary. It's overkill. Yeah, I can see right here in the middle is a plastic tab. There's a couple different ways I can handle this. One is I can take a very small screwdriver or something that I can fit into the seam and push in. And the problem with doing it this way is you're likely going to gouge the plastic. And this is not ideal. The other way is to use a credit card or a store gift card or a loyalty card, a guitar pick. I know down here I have my toolkit. I'm trying to think which toolkit has the spudgers. I think it's this one over here. Just have to move a bunch of stuff. That's a little disappointing to make that so difficult. Okay, so hopefully we're back now. I have a surge protector behind me that when I tossed the box hit the off switch on the surge protector. So later tonight, I'm going to remove that surge protector. I don't like that the power switch sticks up like that. It should be flush. It's not the first time we've accidentally cut power to ourselves. Even by moving the surge protector, if it bumps up against anything, it flips the switch off. And I apologize for that. That's all on me. So hopefully you're back. We're all still here. And bad Carey, bad. So I'm waiting for everybody to come back here. I'm getting some updates now. Barry Klein says he can't even blame Mara for stepping on the switch. See, I told you this has happened. This has been an issue. So later tonight, I'll switch it out because I was switching out some other things last night when I thought about it. And I thought, I never do that. Like, it's so infrequent. And then I just immediately did that hours, like, since I've slept. What can you do? So where were we? I'm still trying to get this apart. You haven't missed anything. So I was opening up my iFixit toolkit. It's not what I need. Oh, here we go. So this has our spudgers. Yeah, that makes a big difference. So that's able to get behind whatever the clips are. Yeah, there's a clip. You can kind of see right there. And every time it closes, it locks it back in. So if I just pull on this with my finger a little bit, just enough to get the spudger, and simply by pushing in and then out towards the camera, should loosen us right back up. And it's important that I keep it spread open once I've unlocked it, because if I let go of it, it'll lock right back in again while I'm trying to do another side. So I want to look where the seam is widest. So we definitely have two. There we go. And very much similar to the other mini PC we reviewed the other day, this does have the ability to add a 2.5-inch drive, but they are not including that cable. I don't think they are. Thank goodness. I think putting a drive in these is a huge error in judgment from people who don't understand the cause of early and premature product failure due to excessive heat over a long period of time. Since there's no fan on here, there's no air movement inside of here. Now the picture that, oh, I take it back. There is a cable. It's already installed. Well, I wouldn't use it. All right, so what do we have in here? Let's take a close-up look here on the camera. This is different. I mean, it's very similar on the outside to the previous mini PCs we reviewed, but this one's taken a different approach. So it looks like they're giving you two 8 gig modules, even though the photo shows one 16, and they've got some heat deflection material taped to the front of these. So if you replace your RAM, you definitely want to put this back over it to help keep heat off, because there again, it's already hot enough to the manufacturers putting these heat panels on there. If you add another drive of heat inside of here, it's definitely going to affect the lifespan of this device. So it's two 8 gig modules. This will be in dual channel DDR4. BIOS battery, this is our NVMe drive, and this is that SATA cable that they've got attached and then taped down. So if you do want to reduce the lifespan of your device and trap more heat inside of it, this is what lets you do that. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. Underneath the NVMe drive, that's your Wi-Fi card. So if you wanted to update the Wi-Fi to a higher standard, you could totally do that. Again, by the time you spend all the money on the upgrades, you're going to end up with a machine that costs you significantly more money than if you would have just bought one already built with what you wanted in it to begin with. It will always cost you more money to upgrade, always, than if you buy the machine already built with what you wanted in there. They can buy the parts in bulk far cheaper than you can. You also risk jeopardizing your warranty and causing any inadvertent damage. Because we're humans and we make mistakes, we may not even realize we made a mistake. So, you know, set your expectations accordingly is all I'm trying to say. I'm not quite sure what good this pull tab is when you have basically a clip here, a very tiny one, a clip here, is that a clip? Nope. There's a clip here, a clip there. Oh yeah, those are clips. So one clip approximately in the middle on each side. All right, so I'm going to put this back on. Again, it doesn't even need the screws. It's not going anywhere, but we'll put the screws back in. I kind of wish they would have picked one or the other, but all the more reason not to get in there, quite frankly. I appreciate we don't have to take the rubber feet off to get in there. So for $10 more, we looked at basically the same unit that had one 16 gig module. This one has two 8s. So you know you have choices if you have a preference. Otherwise, they seem fairly identical. Okay, not too terrible. And again, these aren't really meant to be upgraded. These are meant to be turnkey solutions for people that want to get on with things and they don't want to spend a lot of money. They might have a tight budget or they have very simple needs. And the minute you start opening it up, you ruin your budget and you overcomplicate what is easy, which is the whole point of why it exists. And so you're defeating the whole reason why this exists is to make that simple and unnecessary. It's not a rule, but that's what they're going for. And you would be much better off buying a machine. If that's your personality and you want to, do upgrades, it would be much cheaper and much easier for you to buy something at a price level that represents that kind of those kind of upgrade options. This is going to be extremely limited, and it's at a very extremely limited price. It may not be the right machine if it doesn't fit what it is you're looking for, but they're building machines for who will attract the most amount of sales. And so people who just are going to buy a machine, they're primarily just the general public. They're looking at price first and foremost. A lot of the storage and RAM, they don't understand it. Even to this day, they don't care. Is it Windows 11? I got to get rid of my Windows 10. I don't have much money. How much is this? Can I open Word on this? Can I browse the web? Can I pay my bills? Can I watch YouTube? Can I watch Netflix? Yes, yes, yes. Sold. That's about as far as your average consumer is going to ask about a computer. And for those that are, you know, really technical, these aren't for you unless you're technical enough to understand it's not for you. Like, this is going to be something you use for somebody technical. It might be your home theater PC, or it might be a machine that you use for a specific task. But if you're technical enough that you know how to upgrade it and are thinking about upgrading it, but you're not technical enough to understand that's not what you should have bought to begin with, you're somewhere in the middle. Either way, the one that's the majority, the one that creates the most amount of sales, the most customers this company's going to get are going to come from just average, ordinary home users that are trying to keep it cheap, trying to stay on Windows 11 and get away from their Windows 10, and they need something to accomplish a task, not a game. If they're playing games, it's like solitaire or something. Let me plug this in. Let's get it turned on and see how it's configured. I'll try not to shut our power brick off again. Our first power on, we just want HDMI and a keyboard and a mouse. We don't want to have any internet access on this. Just like any other brand new build, new laptop or new mini, we want to go through the whole out-of-box experience without any other devices plugged into it. No flash drives, no printers, no speakers, none of that. Just video, keyboard, mouse, power, that's it. Because if you do have a problem, good luck figuring out if any of your stuff is causing it. This makes it a lot easier and much faster to diagnose if there's a problem. And usually there's not a problem either way, but it just takes once to go down a rabbit hole that, you know, turns out potentially to be caused by you. So we want to make sure that machine works before we start modifying anything, including adding printers or flash drives, external drives, speakers, because then we have a baseline and we go, okay, I know it worked before I did that. Before I added these things, it worked. Now you know, you should know to undo those things until it works again. Then start adding those things back one by one until the problem comes up again. Now you know what's causing it, and then you can try and figure out why later. But usually the why is because you're mixing old stuff with new stuff. You've got some 15-year-old USB drive you don't want to let go because it still works, but now it's not compatible with new hardware and it's causing this to run like a dog or not to work at all. That's a very difficult thing to do, to diagnose and figure out if you've just set it up for the first time and you plugged everything into it against my advice, and if it doesn't boot up properly or it seems like something's wrong. It is more than likely, 9 times out of 10, because something you're plugging into it is causing that. To verify that I'm not making this up, if you follow my steps, you can verify what I'm telling you when and if there's a problem. You'll be much, much faster for you to figure that out and not have to wonder and say, well, it could be this, could be that, could be this, could be that. All right, let's turn that on. And then we're going to jump over here to our video output of this unit. Yeah, no company name up there either. It just says AMI, the BIOS maker. It's interesting. This is a very normal first boot up process here that's displayed on the screen. I definitely don't want this to just go to a desktop. That would scare me. So everything it's doing is what I expect so far. Looking good. Nice clean install of Windows coming up with their out-of-box experience, which should be asking us regional information, license acceptance, and username, local or online account creation. The no signal usually indicates some kind of a video change happening there as it synchronizes with my monitor for the very first time. Doesn't always happen with all computers, but it's not uncommon. English US is what I want, so we'll come down here, continue in English. Country, United States. Keyboard is United States. No secondary layout for my keyboard. Accept the license agreement. Who's going to use this device? I'm going to say user with a blank password, so it will boot to the desktop when I'm done. I'm going to keep location settings on because the date and time are likely set in the country this is manufactured, which could be 12 to 14 hour time difference, could be on a different day, but I'm not going to change my date or time by hand because this isn't 1997 anymore. Too many mistakes are made when people fat finger things and have no idea they did that. So just leave it to set that automatically and it'll keep it up to date every time you connect to the internet. If your clock is losing or gaining minutes, or if it's daylight saving time, anything like that can handle that so you don't have to worry about it. Everything is being handled for you if you'll stay out of its way. So we're getting up to our first boot. You notice it did not require us to create a Microsoft account. I think that's pretty interesting. That either means we have an older version of Windows 11 or they've modified it. And we'll find out here as soon as we get to the desktop. We'll take a look at what version of Windows 11 we have. And we'll take a look at the device manager and see what our network card information looks like, if it's 1 gig or 2.5 gig, and who makes it. And I'm referring to the wired LAN. The Wi-Fi, we can also look and see who makes that, but personally, I'm not using it, so it's more just a curiosity of, we know what it is, it's Wi-Fi 5, but I don't know if it's Intel or Realtek or MediaTek. But as soon as this finishes here, we're going to have our answer. Now, if you buy a new computer and you're not going through this process, I would reinstall Windows if I were you. If you buy a new computer and it boots right to the desktop, unless it's a friend of yours that set it up or somebody you trust, I wouldn't trust it. So while I do that for my customers trust me, and I'm doing them a favor. But if I'm buying a generic computer sold on Amazon, it's actually a violation of the Microsoft policy. Now, I'm a little concerned that I see some icons that are not stock Windows icons. This is a little concerning. We're in 4K mode, so what I'm going to first do is just adjust the screen resolution so I can read it a little better. So we're going to bring this to 1920 by 1080. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, so this WPS Office and WPS PDF, this would be bloatware. It is not, this does not come from Microsoft. That does scare me because if you're ever going to receive a machine with a potential virus or malware installed, this is a key indicator that that's possible. So we're going to need to check this with Malwarebytes because this is sus. Let's right click on this PC and we'll go to properties. Okay, 16 gigs, yeah. Windows 11 Pro, good. 24H2, perfect. We're solid here. Let's go to the device manager. Right click on the start button, device manager. And who makes our network adapter at what speed? Okay, so it's a Realtek gigabit. It is not 2.5 gig, which it says twice on the Amazon listing in 2 different areas. It is the 1 gig that it also says on the Amazon area that I pointed out. And I suspected at this price point, 2.5 gig did not make any sense. Realtek also makes the wireless, the Wi-Fi 5 adapter and Bluetooth. So that's good. It's all from the same manufacturer. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to plug this into my internet connection. Bear with me for a second. And I'm not plugging in anything else, just the network. And I would do this on a VLAN or I would do it on a guest side of a network just in case there's anything wonky. This may be legit. I don't know. I've just never seen or heard of this before. This kind of falls outside of what's expected, and it makes me suspicious. So we're going to start without data, uncheck that, confirm and continue. Okay. Now we're going to go to Malwarebytes, and we're going to download the free Malwarebytes, and we're going to check this. And it just could be potentially unwanted programs. They're not necessarily dangerous. They're just annoying. I wouldn't be surprised if those applications come up as potentially unwanted. I also wouldn't be surprised if it came up completely clean. But I doubt there's a virus on here. Let's go ahead and open Malwarebytes. Install. Personal use. Next. Yeah, secure my browser. I'm fine with that. We can close all of this out now. And we'll see what happens. This only takes a moment to install. The fan noise on this is much louder than the other unit we looked at. Much, much louder. But it is white noise. I mean, it doesn't bother me too much, but I know it's on. All right, see what happens here. Patiently waiting for Malwarebytes to open. Here it comes. Let's get started. Maybe later. Continue with a free trial. Got it. Run a full scan. All right, so we're going to let this run. It's probably also downloading Windows 11 updates in the background since we're now plugged in. And the no signal is occurring likely because, as I was talking about those updates that are likely going to be running in the background, if you were to get a video driver update, for example, when we first started, it was syncing with the monitor, and that caused the screen to go blank for a minute. For me, I'm assuming that did it for you guys too. And then it just did it again, but for a different reason. That would be a driver replacement happening in the background. And what we're looking for is we want to watch this little area that says detections. That number, I believe it turns red if it's anything other than 0. And I really want this to come up clean. I never heard of this brand, but I want to hope that they're coming out of the gate strong. I don't think anybody's doing anything maliciously. I think it comes out of ignorance. They don't realize it when it happens. But regardless of the reason why, I just want to verify if there's anything to be concerned about. So far, everything looks clean. You see Malwarebytes moves through this pretty quick. We're almost at 250,000 files. I mean, we're going to get to 250,000 real quick here in a minute and a half. Some files may be compressed and have files within them, and that's when you'll see those numbers slow down, because it has to open those compressed archives up and then look inside of the archive. So depending on how many of those we have and the speed of the processor, this all can add to the time it takes. So while that's running, let me put camera 1 back up right here. And then all I'll do is I'll just take the corner of it. You can see me and it at the same time. Now, it clearly did a quick scan for that to be over so quickly. What that means is if there is any malware that it's not running, that doesn't mean it doesn't sit on the hard drive. And that's why whenever you watch these YouTube reviewers and they go, oh, I scanned it for malware, you can look and see how long, like when they show you the screenshot, it'll say the scan was 3 minutes long. That's not a full scan. A full scan would take much, much longer, likely 90 minutes or so. But if I go back over here, let me go to camera, let's see, let's go back to the desktop full screen for me.
This looks really good. All right, so that is virus and malware free. But if we want to scan every dormant file, which obviously if it's dormant, it's not, it's not an issue. But if you're just curious, like, could there possibly be? What I would do is I would go to the dash, well, I guess I hit next, huh? Skip that. Skip that. Maybe later. This is the cost of free. All right, so if we go to our scanner, hit the three dots, go to advanced scan, go to custom scan, scan for rootkits, and do all of drive C. This is now going to scan every single file, whether it's dormant or active, versus before it was only the active files, which are really the only ones that matter. But out of curiosity and just to be thorough, we'll do this while we take questions from you guys. If you have any questions for me, fire away. And he says, I think the Wowie is the better deal. Maybe. I mean, it's really hard to say. The Wowie's $10 more, so if it's worth the extra $10, I guess that's for each one of us to decide. Gentleman 2000 said WP Office was developed by the Chinese company Kingsoft Office Software. Yeah, I've never heard of it. WPS used to be WordPerfect, so I don't know. I've never heard of it. If we go back and look at the Amazon page, let's see if I can go back to my window capture. They're saying it's 2.5 gig LAN here, but it says it's 1,000 megabits per second here. So they're saying both. They're saying it's 2.5 in some areas, and they're saying it's 1 gig. It's inconsistent. That's why we weren't sure. Even as we scroll down, it says it's 2.5 gig here. But if we scroll down a little further, it says two and a half gig here, but it says it's 1 gig here. So everywhere they contradict themselves. I think it says 2.5 gig like 3 or 4 times, and then it says 1 gig 2 or 3 times. So which one is it? And we'll let them know of this discrepancy. I'm sure that's a copy and paste where somebody just took another model and didn't change everything consistently. It was changed in some places and not other places. And they're calling this color blue. It's kind of a grayish blue, I suppose. It's nice that it's got the SD card reader on the side, micro SD card reader or trans flash reader. The Wowie did not have that. There is a great review here from somebody, and it's a verified purchase. It's proven to be an excellent choice. Multi-core. Well, they liked it. It's got 1 review, so it's recently released. Company I've never heard of before. So the advantage are oftentimes these brands that are not well known or are brand new, they're going to be priced a lot more aggressively in order to convince you to give them a chance. Andy says he likes less fan noise on the Wowie, ease of entry, true, and the single channel RAM so that he can slap another 16 in there rather than have to replace both. Yeah, those are valid preferences that you have, for sure. I'm not sure everybody would universally agree that those are their preferences, but they're definitely your preferences, and totally makes sense to me that those things are important to you. Can you put malware bytes on a flash drive and test for malware without getting online? Well, how would you get the latest virus definitions if you don't go online? How would that make any sense? So you could check. You could probably download an offline version of Malwarebytes with an old out-of-date virus database and scan for any viruses up to the date of the database. But anything that's been released since then, you'll just be passing right by, defeating the whole point, in my opinion, of running Malwarebytes. There's other tools you can download. You know, Malwarebytes doesn't stand alone in that. You could also simply put the Wi-Fi on your guest network, just in case you're worried about infecting anything on your network. If you have an unrestricted and open network, just put it on your guest network, and if everything's cool. Or, if you're that paranoid, just reinstall Windows when you buy it. It's a non-issue. There's no virus that'll stay behind after you wipe it and reinstall it, unless it's a rootkit. We haven't seen any rootkits in 20 years, so I don't think that's very likely. Unless that trend comes back around again, I think it'd be unreasonable to be that concerned. I'd recommend you not buy it. So if I go back to, let's see, what are we doing over here? I got no signal. I think the computer went to sleep on me while I've been looking at the chat room. Let me check our power settings. Not that there's been anything to see. Let's do edit power plan. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I'm going to change this to 3 hours. Putting the computer to sleep makes no sense to me since there's no battery on it. So that'll keep that from happening. Now this could take a while. I mean, it's going to scan a ton of files here. We can completely avoid this task if we want to reinstall Windows. The way I would reinstall Windows is I would just back up the drivers that are on it into a folder. I've shown you guys how to do that in other videos. Put those drivers on a flash drive. Then go ahead and boot the machine to a Windows 11 install flash drive. Wipe out all the partitions, reset the drive back to factory settings, and do a clean install of Windows 11, making sure that the version we have before we begin is Home or Pro. So if I right click and go to Properties, I want to verify if I have Windows 11 Pro, I need to put Windows 11 Pro back on it. If I want to be reactivated automatically, if I put Windows 11 Home on this, it will not reactivate. I will have to buy a Windows 11 Home product key. But I'm assuming I'm activated and I haven't checked it. So I'll just type in the word activation. I'll start to type it. The suggestion comes up. And yes, it's active. That means it's activated, and this activation stays with the motherboard. As long as we're always putting Windows 11 Pro back on it, we never have to put the key in ever again, and it will automatically activate. Windows Update will recognize the serial number of the motherboard essentially and put their product key back in for us. You do not need a Microsoft account. That's the way Microsoft Activation's been working for about 10 years now. A lot of people still not on board with this and still doing things the hard way from 1997. You don't have to do that anymore. And if you're not activating, it's likely because you did not install this. If this machine came with Windows 11 Home, and I assumed it came with Windows 11 Pro, one of the ways I'll know I made the mistake is the activation won't happen because the license key isn't for Pro. So I can either buy a new license key for home, or I can just wipe it and reinstall it again and choose Pro next time, before I get, after all, it's a wipe and reinstall. I'm not losing anything by doing it again. That's why you don't rush through this. You make sure your foundations are solid before you go through any customization or changes, because it's your customization and changes that are likely going to cause your problem. If you follow the normal boilerplate processes of resetting and installing, and you have a problem, you likely have a hardware problem. Otherwise, any problem that happens after that is likely a software problem the end user causes, based on what I see, based on my experience and the support calls we get. And I don't tell you that to insult you, I tell you that to help you, so you understand where to look for problems when they occur. So if we're having a problem during a Windows install, it's likely a hardware problem. If we're having a problem after a Windows install, it's likely a user-created problem. And I say likely, not always, just most of the time. Okay. David Graham said, is that Microsoft Office installed, or is it just the shortcut? Windows 11 by default installs the shortcut to Microsoft Office in order to try and sell it to you. It is not bloatware. It's simply there to be advertising. So if we look at a Windows 11 installer, anytime you've ever seen me install it, you're going to see LinkedIn and Spotify and if you're in the European Union or outside of the US, those options may be restricted because of the laws they have there. But here in the US, when we're setting our country and region, it's sort of defining what's available in your area and what the local laws are that Microsoft has to follow. So if I go back to full screen over here on my side, and we click on the start menu, LinkedIn is just a shortcut, and you can tell if it's bloatware by how long it takes to uninstall. This Xbox thing, I don't use it. See how fast this stuff comes off? So this Microsoft Word that you're looking at in Excel, if we bring those up, so normally you wouldn't get separate Word in Excel, you'd normally get Office 365. But what you're going to get here is a trial. And it's going to say you can enter your product key, or you can continue in the trial mode you can open it a certain number of times and then it won't work anymore if you don't pay for it. So this is not the default install of Office that comes with Windows 11. This looks like it's a manufacturer add-on that, let's see, let's answer these questions here. If you click on account, you'll see that it says that activation is required, Office 365. So normally that is not included in a standard Windows 11 United States install. But maybe where this computer is made, maybe that's normal in East Asia, I don't know. If we go and look in our installed applications, we've seen these units with multiple versions of Office installed. That can take up a lot of hard drive space. So if I go under apps and take a look under installed apps, am I going to see 8 different versions of Microsoft Office? Now this looks pretty clean. I'm not a fan of this being on here. I'm not even sure where that's coming from. Oh, here we go. So we have an Office 365 English US here. This is normally not included on a Windows install in the United States. This is the one you typically get, so that's why there's 2. This one should not have been put on. They both essentially do the same thing. The Department of Redundancy department. Other than that, it looks pretty clean. I don't know what the Start Experience app is. It's from Microsoft, but I don't know what that is. There are some regional differences. So if your source is coming from another country, then those are the defaults for that country. So if you want it back to your country standards, you need to wipe it and install it yourself. Again, super easy to do. We back up our drivers and we simply install Windows as though it were a brand new machine. We erase the existing partitions, we go through our install, we add our drivers, we go to Windows Updates. It's super easy. If that's what you want to do, it's definitely an option. Let me just check something here real quick. Hold on a second. That video should come back here in a moment. There it is. Okay, so this is likely going to come up clean, but there are some preferences I don't care for. As a result, I will probably reinstall Windows 11 on this, only because if we end up giving this away to a member of our channel, I don't want them to ask me questions that don't fall within the normal spec of a clean installation. So if this manufacturer, for example, if an end user had questions about this this WPS program, which is like that, I can't answer any of those questions. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it does. I don't know how to use it. And you would never get that from me. So as an individual, if you go out and you buy this, it's your choice. But for me, before I would send it off to a customer or even to a viewer, I have to have the same install on that I do on every machine, whether it's a laptop, desktop, any PC, or it's going to be impossible for me to answer their questions. And they likely won't have any questions. You understand? Because everything will always be the same. But should they still have questions, I will be able to answer them. When a manufacturer does the install and it varies from my install, I don't know what they did. So I don't know how to answer some questions. Arnold said, at this stage, I doubt Malwarebytes will find any malware. I agree with you, Arnold. I don't think it's going to find any either. Paul Vircher says, can you use USB to get the 2.4 gig Ethernet? So 2.4 gig is wireless, 2.5 gig is wired. Can you use USB to get 2.5 gig wired? You could, yes. Yeah, USB 3.2 on this will support 5 gigabits per second. And so last I checked, 2.5 is less than 5, no problem. Yeah, it's an interesting choice of setup that the manufacturer has put on here. And it certainly means they put a lot more effort into it than just slapping it into a box and selling it as is. They've customized it in a way that's uniquely their own. I've never seen another manufacturer do that. Is that a benefit, or is that a negative thing? It's for each one of you to decide. It's definitely not bad or dangerous, but it may not be your preference, and it's definitely different. For some people, different is better. I think for most people, they don't like different. People are resistant to things they're not familiar with. Usually the whole reason anybody ever experiences fear or discomfort is because of a lack of familiarity, and it translates emotionally into their state of mind and presence. But for me as a technician, I'm looking at the facts. I try to remove all emotion from it. Is this a value? Is this sketchy? Is it dangerous? Is it good or bad? If it's not bad in a definitive way, but as a personal preference, then I cannot define it. That will be for each one of you to decide. Again, for me personally, just on the support of things, I would completely reset this. So the way I reset them, just as a reminder, because it's so easy. So I will take my my utilities flash drive and my Butterfingers, and we're going to plug it into any USB port here, because this has the command, a command that you can freeze frame and type in, or you can look through my videos if you're too lazy to just copy and paste. All right, but it's not that hard to type it in. Regardless, it feels very condescending for me to do that. For me to say, you can just copy and paste this and don't worry your pretty little head over all the little letters and numbers. I just think you guys can easily freeze frame and copy what you see on the screen. But regardless, let me go to full screen on this. I see it in a window. You guys see it full screen. So I have to make it full screen. Then I can see it the way you do. Now I can see. And we're going to come over here to the flash drive. And I'm going to copy the command right here. I call it driver backup. If I open that up, that's the command I need. It's right. This is it right here. There's a full explanation, and I would recommend, if you're interested in this, freeze this frame and read this screen. Okay? But I've already read this screen hundreds of times, and there's only a certain part of it that I want. And then I'm going to open up a command prompt, CMD, with administrator privileges. Click yes, and Control V to paste, and we're off to the races, backing up all the drivers. So if I go to backslash, I should have a drivers folder. I do. So now what I can do is simply go over to the C drive and copy this drivers folder. Then I don't have to go looking for drivers. I can find the drivers, but I don't want to have to look. If I just take the ones I got now, there's nothing wrong with them. Why work harder than I have to? And I can just put that on the flash drive if I have enough room for them. Let's see. Hey, we got our drivers on the flash drive. Now I can remove the flash drive, and you don't have to safely disconnect anymore. But I'm going to go ahead and eject it anyway. And the next thing I would do is grab my standard Windows 11 installation media. If you're not sure how to make that, we've covered it, I don't know, half a dozen times. So please go back in the library and look, or just search for other content creators and find whatever video communicates with you to make your USB 11 drive. USB Windows 11 installer. That's all free and legal from Microsoft. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this so I can just show you a quick reset. And I think it's probably just fine, by the way. I don't see any indication of anything being wrong. I just don't like the preferences of the region settings that this manufacturer selected. And, you know, who can blame them? How do they know what it's like in the United States? They likely have never been here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's, what wants to update? I don't really need to update this. I don't even really need to worry about shutting it off properly. I can just pull the plug on it. What am I going to lose? Am I going to corrupt my data? I'm going to wipe it out anyway. We'll plug it back in, and when we turn it back on, we're going to try and get into the BIOS on this and just tell it to boot off the USB drive. So while it's booting up, usually the delete key is the most common way to get into the BIOS. So I'm going to start there just because more than likely that's what gets us in. That did not work for me, and that's okay. I have a choice now. I can unplug and do it again, or I can just let it boot up and go through the Windows Update recovery settings and tell it through Windows to boot to the flash drive. So a lot of different ways to accomplish the same task. I could also, look up what is the BIOS boot up key. Could be escape, could be F10, F8, F2. Look, I just want to get it done. I don't want to have to learn and memorize one computer out of thousands of computers as though I'm going to retain that information. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit Settings, and then I'm going to go to Windows Update, and then I'm going to go to Advanced Options and Advanced, under Recovery, and then Advanced Startup and Restart Now. And that's just a lazier way to do it. That's all. I mean, if delete key would have worked, that would have been lazier. This is the second laziest way. So when it comes up, we're going to get an advanced startup menu, and it's going to offer us recovery options. Recovery meaning, hey, something's wrong with my computer. Can I do a system restore? Can I boot from a recovery utility USB? That's why we're choosing this, because we're going to boot to this Windows 11 installer. That's why it's listed under recovery. We're going to use a device, use a USB drive. Which device? This one right here. And now when it restarts, it's going to make an attempt to boot from our USB drive before trying to boot to the M.2 internal. If I have mistakenly plugged in my utilities flash drive, it's not bootable, and it's going to take me back into Windows. And I'm going to say, what? Why isn't this working? User error. Okay, this is our Windows 11 setup. I click Next, US keyword. This is my Windows 11 from America, not theirs from Asia. I'm going to agree to everything, hit Next. And this is all the boilerplate. I have done this, I can't even count how many times for you guys. I realize we have new viewers all the time, so for their benefit, we're going to show it again. People are not going back through the library. People are simply not watching old videos. They can't be bothered. You have to bring the information to them or they're helpless. For that reason, much of our old content has been removed. It's not being looked at by the vast majority of viewers. Videos that are older than about a month get looked at a handful of times a month. But when they're first posted, they're viewed thousands of times in the first couple weeks. After that, it's almost like they go invisible to viewers. And that just may be because there's so much content being released, you can't keep up. All right, we're going to delete all of the partitions on disk 0. And this is all disk 0. That's our internal drive. So one by one, we're going to click and delete each partition. That wipes out the entire drive back to factory settings. One by one. We click delete partition, we wait, and it becomes unallocated space. And we're going to go through this until there is only one disk 0 on the list. Each partition represents another area of disk 0, and we want to see disk 0 being entirely one item of unallocated space. That's how you receive a drive when you order one brand new. We're going to leave disk 1 alone because that's our USB drive, and we definitely don't want any other drives installed on the computer when you do this, or you could mistakenly erase the wrong drive. So strongly recommended you only have your flash drive installer and your main drive you want to install too. Everything else should be disconnected or unplugged to avoid errors. Next, everything flows through the exact same way as any other new install. It is now a new install. Just the step of deleting partitions is the only thing that differentiates this from a new install than a reinstall. But we are wiping out everything and starting over again versus just starting over again on a brand new machine, which doesn't have anything to wipe out. It's the same exact process from this point forward. Once this installs, we can recover our drivers folder back over to the C drive, put the drivers back on, and that's way easier and faster than picking through things and I'll take this out, I'll take that out. Just wipe the whole thing. It's so much faster. We would probably still be scanning with malware bytes, honestly. And by the time this is done and we've installed the drivers, Malwarebytes would probably still be scanning. But by doing it myself, I know for a fact there's nothing on it because I've wiped everything out. So if I'm putting Windows 11 on this myself, if I have that concern or that mental state, this is the only way you can resolve that mental state quickly and without a doubt. On the other hand, if you're like most users, you don't give a rat's behind as long as it works. So choose the path that's right for you. This information is available to the general public. The general public makes up a lot of people with a lot of different attitudes and a lot of different value systems. And I'm not here to pick one. I'm simply here to provide the information to let people who don't know that other people exist and that other people don't share their values. Doesn't make those other people bad people or wrong. You like it the way you like it. If I go get a hot dog and I want nothing on my hot dog, that's my choice. If you say, well, you're crazy, you got to put ketchup and mustard and relish and a pickle and tomato. No, I don't. No, that's what you do. So if you don't want anybody to give you a hard time about the way you like it, then maybe show that same consideration in return. Accept that we're all different, and that's what makes the world a beautiful place and not boring and predictable. Let's see. Fast Track says, compare it to an Intel N150. You know, we don't have to do that. The internet's already done it for you. If you open up Copilot or you open up your browser and type in N150 space versus, or just the letter V space, and then whatever you want to compare it to, that job's already been done. The manufacturers of these mini PCs are not creating the CPUs. So any computer with a N150 is going to run within a very minor margin of error, exactly the same as any other. The manufacturers are not altering the CPUs. They can alter the wattage to them, but you know, it comes at a cost of either less efficiency and higher heat or better efficiency and a slightly slower speed. If you're the kind of person who cares about details like that, you should not be looking at budget computers. If you want to go into McDonald's and you want to see the ingredients list of everything they put in their meat, you're likely not going to get it. This is how we do it. If you want to be that particular and that finicky and you want to look at that minutia, you have to go to a higher spend level for that information to be provided to you. If you're that finicky, you probably won't be satisfied with any of these computers at this level. I just don't want you to be disappointed. You're wasting your time. The difference isn't that much, and if that much makes a difference to you, you won't be happy with any of them. You need to go to a higher price point. The 3550 will be superior in many ways, but it's not like 10 times faster. It's you get what you pay for. Most people couldn't tell the difference, honestly. And if you're somebody who can, you're not the right market for this computer. Nobody's buying these for performance. If they are, they're going to be very disappointed. If you want performance, pay for it. Or you're just not going to be a happy customer. I want you to be happy. So, just so you know. We're just about done with our Windows 11 install, and then we can begin the driver installation. I've seen people, content creators, manually installing each driver, and I just shake my head and go, man, that's bad advice. You don't have to install each driver by hand. That's clearly somebody who doesn't understand how Windows works. It'll get you there, but it's really the long way to go. You can just hit one button, put all the drivers in. It's really easy. It's a shame when content creators give out information that they don't fully understand, and they show a very difficult way to do that. And look, none of us are no experts in everything, and we all learn. But it sure would have been nice if they'd have done a little research before they made the video and verified that way that they were showing was the optimal way. So I see that content like posted this week, and I just shake my head and go, that content creator doesn't have a clue. He's making his audience do things a difficult way. And he's saying, look at how easy this is. And the audience doesn't know any better. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for showing me. And I'm sitting here going, wow, did he or they show the difficult way to do that? Okay, so that's why we continue to make our videos here. Right? It's not up to me to decide how other content creators make theirs. I just don't think they know any better. So we'll hit United States, and again, we're going to go through this out-of-box setup. It's very similar, but yet, the region that our Windows install comes from isn't going to look exactly the same. Our background looks a little different here. Things like that, little indicators that let you know that there are differences in the different installations in different countries. Even though I'm still choosing English and I'm still choosing United States, our base installer is a United States base installer. If I use an international installer, it's slightly different. And that's fine if it's your computer, but it's not fine if you're selling 100 computers and some of them have an international install and some of them have an English or United States installer. There are little nuances that could result in support calls that have me very confused. Oh, so I have made a mistake here. I've left the internet plugged in. So the reason why this isn't done is I broke my own rule here by leaving the internet plugged in. And in doing that, it's downloading updates automatically, which I'm not okay with. So by pulling this plug now, what's happened is the internet connection that's happened to get these updates has been interrupted. So now the communication's been broken. Windows doesn't know why the communication's been broken. It's sort of like when you're on the cell phone and the person you're talking to, they're not there anymore, but they still might be able to hear you. So most of us don't hang up right away. Can you hear me? Hello? Just so you know, I can't hear you. That's what's happening right now. And in a moment, it's going to realize they're gone. It's going to give up, and it's going to move on with the installer. So don't expect this to respond automatically if you just did what I did and left that plugged in by mistake. Or you could wait it out if you want to. I'm making a live video. I'm trying to make this happen quickly, guys. And this is the opposite of quickly. We can get to this part later. In fact, I really don't need it at this point. Once we get back to the desktop, it should ask us, to create a local account since it doesn't have the online option. Once we create our local account, it sets up our desktop for us. We're not going to have those weird icons. Everything's going to be normal, just like it always is. And then I can copy the drivers folder off of the flash drive, put it anywhere I want on my C drive. I could leave it on the flash drive. I don't have to move it, but I need this flash drive for other things. And I only need the drivers for this unit. So I might as well keep the drivers on this unit. I can't use them with anything else. So I'm going to just click I don't have internet. And I'll put the word user for the username. Leave the password blank. And leave my location settings for the same reasons I always do. And now we just wait for the desktop to appear here in just a moment. If you guys have any questions about this unit or about our reinstall of Windows or the drivers, anything related to today's content, let us know. Let me know in the chat room right now, and I'll do my best to answer your question or point you in the direction of a link where you can find an answer to your question, where it may be already answered and I don't have to recreate it. Andy wants to know if hardware info CPU package power is the same as TDP. I think so, but I'm not certain. I'm curious what Copilot will say if I copy and paste your question into Copilot. Copilot says CPU package power and thermal design power, TDP, are not the same thing. CPU package power is the real-time power consumption of the entire CPU package. See, so even I got it wrong. If we go over here to my screen capture, I should be able to show you Copilot's answer here. And it's definitely highly recommended that you guys take advantage of this. So this is real-time power consumption of the entire CPU package. It includes power used by cores, integrated graphics, memory controller, and other internal components. It's measured in watts and varies depending on workload. It's reported by HW Info using telemetry from the CPU itself. But TDP, or thermal design power, is a static set specification set by the manufacturer of the CPU, which represents the maximum amount of heat the cooling system should be able to dissipate under any typical workload. It's often used by system builders to choose appropriate cooling solutions, but it's not a direct measurement of actual power usage. It's more of a guideline. So TDP is a target for cooling, and CPU package power is the actual power draw, which may be higher or lower than TDP depending on how the CPU is being used at that time. If you're monitoring temps or planning a build, it's smart to look at both. All right. Well, see, we learned something new, both of us. I don't pay too much attention to heat or TDP unless there's a reason to. I don't just look at it just because. If you can't give me a reason why we're looking at it, I have other things to do. So that's why it never even occurs to me to think of stuff like that unless it has to do with solving a problem. But if you're not having any problem, I can't see the point in even, I don't see how this is any useful of your time and attention. I don't know why you'd waste it in such a way. If you are having a problem, that's likely not the solution, but I'd have to know what the problem is first. Then I would guide you. But at no point have I ever guided anybody to TDP or hardware info for any diagnostic. I've never used it. I've never needed it. It's never solved any problems for me. Okay, so just from my perspective, it's irrelevant overkill information that really makes no difference in reality unless it has an impact on a solution for you. But I'd have to know what the problem is first. And that's likely not the way I would solve it. It's just information overload that really doesn't matter from the way I can see it. All right, so we're back at the desktop here. I'm going to copy the drivers folder. So I'm going to take full screen over here. And see all these icons, they're not filled in because I'm not plugged into the internet yet. And these are regional icons, meaning if I'm in Europe, these aren't going to be the same. So it waits until it has a connection and verifies where's my connection from. And then according to the laws of where I'm at, it's able to propagate this. So for now, that's normal. I don't care. I'm going to leave it unplugged from the internet. I'm going to go to, let's go to Device Manager and let's see, are we missing any devices, first of all? So it shows 2. The problem is there's likely other outdated drivers that you don't know about because they're working. They're just out of date. So if all you're doing is looking for the devices that need drivers, you are doing yourself a disservice. On a clean install, you are leaving old drivers aboard. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's detrimental, but new drivers have a reason for existing, and you being blind to them by simply voluntarily choosing to only look at the ones drawing your attention, the others are hiding in plain sight that may need your attention. What's the most efficient way to know? The most efficient way to know is to simply click on any item in your device manager. So for example, if I close Device Manager out and reopen it again, we're going to go here. And if you look up at the top, there's only 5 items up here. But if you click on literally anything one time, this expands. Have you guys noticed this? Because it seems like most content creators that claim to be experts are completely unaware of this. And it's been a staple of Windows since Windows 10. I don't understand why why people are blind. They choose not to see it. I'm bringing it to your attention for this reason. Feels like I need to. There's a button that says add drivers. It doesn't ask you which ones, does it? Just add drivers. Okay. Where are the drivers? Not which drivers. Where are the drivers? Well, we left the drivers on the flash drive. So if we browse to the flash drive, I can install these drivers directly from the flash drive or copy the drivers over and copy it locally and install locally. So I'm going to say where the drivers are is on my E drive, my flash drive. That's not my flash drive. Hold on. This is my flash drive. And we have a folder we copied in there called drivers. Hold on a minute. I need to go to, let me cancel this for a second. Browse. So I'm under the desktop. I need to be under this PC. That's where my confusion is. Then under drive D, and then under, why am I not seeing drivers? You know, part of the thing here is I've got the resolution's at 4K and I'm having a hard time seeing. Right click, display settings. Oh, I know why. It's on the other flash drive. I put it on my utilities flash drive. So I need to take the Windows installer, put on the drive. I actually copied the drivers too. That would be helpful. Now I can find it. Oh, you know, it's always the simple things that throw me. You can show me the most complicated thing and I can make easy sense of it. Show me a door that says push and I'm pulling on it trying to figure out why it won't open. I get there. Let's try again. We're going to add the drivers. We're going to browse. We're going to find our flash drive and we're going to find that drivers folder. That's it. That's it. I'm not going to select any of these drivers. The computer's going to do all that for me. I click OK and hit next, and it's going to scan that folder, not only for the missing drivers, but for the updated drivers. And you're going to see a lot of drivers going in, more than just 2. What's it for? Don't care. Which ones is it replacing? Don't care. It won't replace them unless they're newer or missing. That's all I need to know. And since we have every driver that was on the system, if there is a driver that is already there from Windows, it won't put it on. Only if the driver is newer. Even if the driver we have is working and doesn't show up in the device manager as an exclamation point or a problem, doesn't mean there's no benefit to having the newer driver. Newer driver exists for a reason. It doesn't matter if you know what that reason is. It doesn't change. It doesn't matter if you understand why night falls. You know, why does it get dark? It doesn't matter why. Because whether or not you understand why won't change the fact that it's happened, and you can't do anything to stop it. So we're going to go ahead and hit close, and those drivers oftentimes require a restart to take effect. That's normal. Even when it doesn't require a restart, it's good practice to go ahead and restart, just to be sure that you're having those drivers running before you proceed forward and do anything else. Once again, if you put the drivers on and it doesn't require a restart, and then you start customizing your Windows with putting programs on, then you restart and it doesn't restart for some reason, why? Was it the drivers or was it what you did after the drivers? I don't know. Well, good luck with that. You can start all over again if you want to. Might be faster, start all over again. And you keep doing that until you figure out what I'm telling you makes a whole lot of sense if you want to get it done once the right time. Get it done the right way one time. Unlike my words. All right, so I was going to put this back into a lower res there, so I'm going to put it back to 1920 by 1080. So here, The reason this doesn't appear is there's still a video driver that's missing. And the way we're going to get that, and the reason why this is shaded out, is for whatever reason, that video driver, when we backed up our drivers, we don't get it. Likely, it's something that's controlled through Windows Update. So if I now plug the internet in, and I'm going to show you a couple things here. If we click on the Start menu, we're going to have all those shaded out icons. The minute I plug this internet connection in, it's going to establish an IP address with our router. And this little icon down in the bottom right corner here is going to become solid. And then after it becomes solid, it connects to the Microsoft servers very quickly and propagates these icons. But it's also downloading updates in the background. So if I sit here talking to you, you will see the screen blank out and come back, even though you have no idea why that happened. It's what's going on behind the scenes for Windows to maintain itself. Microsoft has long learned that users will ignore and leave everything alone for fear of breaking it. And therefore, they will not get their updates and they will not be secure online unless it is done for them. This is why people use Windows. If you don't like that, you really need to be a Linux user or a more complex OS user. Windows is a coloring book and you want to read Tolstoy. You're not going to be happy with the coloring book. This is made to be approachable and usable by an average person regardless of education. And if you feel that that's oversimplified for you, you should not be using this operating system. It was never, from day one, ever designed for technical people. And as Windows continues to evolve, it will continue to become less dependent on an end user and will start making decisions with AI because the end user doesn't know what to do. They don't understand file and folder structure quite often. That is a very difficult concept. If you ask them where they save their files, they don't know. If you try to explain it to them, their eyes glaze over, they have a mental block, they're not interested, they just want their stuff back. A lot of people drive a car with the same attitude. They don't know how the car works. You put gas over here, this is how you start the car, this is how you go, this is how you stop. Beyond that, they don't care. If you told them their blinker fluid needs to be replaced, they will believe you. They don't know, and they have no interest in wanting to know. They just want to drive the car. That's who Windows is designed for. If you expect anything more technical from it, you need to be using Linux. Windows will never accommodate the technical people. They may have little touches here and there of bringing Linux into the background, but it's nothing anybody should ever really require. A normal end user would never require a technician to come over and do that for them. That's just not a thing. That's a whole different thing for a whole different group of people. That's totally optional, and there's nothing in there required. All right, so with that, it has not blinked out on us. I've been talking, kind of biding my time here. But if we go over to settings and then we go to Windows Update, we can see updates are happening right now, regardless. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this option on. And even though that option was not on before, it's still downloading updates. So when it shows us the update results, you will see, actually it doesn't show it's installing anything, but likely it still is, even though it's not displayed here. I'm going to go under advanced options. I also like to turn on to receive updates automatically, keep me up to date, and let me know when it's ready for a reboot. And I do see an optional update driver here, and this is for the SD card reader, the micro SD card reader, or trans flash as it's sometimes called. That's fine. If we go into device manager, you will see everything in there is happy now. And that's because we loaded the drivers that we backed up. Okay, so let me go back over to our chat. Once it gets these updates and we restart, I will be able to change my resolution. So. Andy says, I learn stuff new here every video. Dennis says, the problem is remembering it. Well, that's why I make it as a video. So if this was a real classroom and you were real students, you'd have a pen and paper and you'd be taking notes. But because this is a YouTube video, you simply need to come back to this video, make a bookmark, click, come back to it anytime. You can watch it as many times as you want. The more you come back to it, the more you watch it, the more likely the information will stick. If you want to learn to play the piano, you've got to keep playing. You can't just play it once and think, oh, now I know how to play. You only know how to play if you keep repeating it. So it's just learning. But the advantage of having YouTube is you can have it repeated back to you as many times as you personally desire. And I don't have to keep repeating myself to each individual person. That requires a repetition of the information where they can go and click it and watch it at their convenience as many times as they want. Doesn't bother me one bit. Knock yourselves out. And if you find things that are important to you, bookmark the videos. And, you know, even make a note of the time. If there's something in the video at a certain timestamp, just make a little notepad, you know, copy and paste the link with the timestamp. And in your notepad, just type in Carey backs up drivers. Here's the link to the video, here's the timestamp, or you can even save the timestamp as part of the video link. So as soon as you click on the link, it starts at that time. Then the next time I do something about installing Windows, I don't know, whatever it is, you just open the same notepad file, couple lines down, here's how Carey installs Windows. And when your notepad file gets to be like 20 pages long and you're like, how do I find any of these notes I've made? You hit Control F and type in a keyword, drivers, and it, boom, it'll move you right through that document to exactly where you're looking for. And then when you do that often enough, you'll be looking less and less often as the information starts to stick. Dennis says, I first discovered your channel back when Malwarebytes had that bad update. What a mess that was. Yeah, that was back prior to the pandemic, and thankfully it's never happened again since. So, you know, what upsets me is that it happened, and where I'm concerned is, will it happen again? It's never happened again, so they're back on my good graces. You know, I said they're on probation for the rest of the year. They did not violate their probation, and nor have they revisited that in any way, shape, or form, even close to what happened. Good, they learned. They're not doing that anymore. I'm back to being happy again. We're all allowed to make mistakes. You just don't make the same mistakes. That's important. I'm curious, if I come back over here full screen, has my video driver gone in? I've not been paying attention. No, it's still shaded out. Okay. Just need to be patient. It's almost done. When we reboot, I'm sure it'll be there. I can also manually download the AMD chipset drivers. Couldn't hurt. They're free. And they may be newer than what was installed on the system. Once you've made a good solid install of Windows and you've updated it, even if you want to put your applications and configure your email, your printers, then do a backup image of your system. You will never have to do this again. Not on your system, maybe on a different system or a friend's or family member's, but never on your own. All you'd have to do is restore your Windows 7. It's a Windows 7 backup that's in the control panel. Comes with Windows. You don't even have to use Acronis. Or you could download Acronis, put it in free trial mode. It allows you to make backups for the trial period for free. It allows you to restore those backups indefinitely in the future for free. So you could do it that way. There's lots of different ways you could do it. But you never have to go through this again if you make a system image the way you like it and before you start really utilizing it and making it all dirty. You know, through temp files and opening and closing and changing things around. You have a good solid foundation, and a restore probably take less than 10 minutes versus a complete restructure, which takes as long as, I don't know, would have been on this an hour. We've been doing this, and we're not done yet. So you won't have to reinstall the same updates, you don't have to reinstall the same programs, you don't have to go through all the formatting. Everything gets put back with a system image restore. If you bothered to make it. If you can't be bothered to make it, I don't care. I'm just letting you know, man. Life can be a lot easier if you want it to be, but it's you have to do it. I can't do it for you unless you're willing to pay me. Andy says, if a manufacturer sets the TDP at 15 watts and another manufacturer sets it at 25 watts, with hopefully better cooling, the 25 unit should have better performance. May not be noticeable, and assuming it's all the same CPU. If performance is all you care about, and you don't care about heat, if you don't care about power consumption, if you don't care about noise, and if you don't care about premature part failure earlier than its expected lifespan, then the answer to your question is yes, with those potential consequences. Yeah. Oh, and we've got an email. Thank you. The manufacturer is going to set it the way it should be set for most people. Most people don't know what a TDP is. And the ones who often have problems that are related to premature failures, noise, or higher electric bills than expected are the ones who dug themselves into a hole that most people would have never grabbed the shovel. But clearly most people aren't watching videos. Based on the questions I see from our community here in the chat room, you guys are not asking questions any customer has ever asked me. Never in my career. These questions are all very, very technical that are not the kind of thing I encounter in my regular work. That doesn't mean your questions are wrong or invalid. I encourage your questions. But often what it translates to is that most people don't think of that as important. If you explain it to them, they don't care. And the question is, will the computer do what I need it to do? The way a customer will ordinarily talk about this, it won't be in a technical sense. They're going to say, why is my fan so loud? Why does the computer feel hot when I touch it? Is that okay? They don't understand, they don't want to understand, and they don't care. Aside from, can I get my work done? Do I have anything to complain about? They won't go digging around the system looking at frames per second. They maybe look at their resolution. Maybe, most don't even do that. They want their wallpaper to be what they want it to be. They need their applications, even if it's a game they like to play. They need to have it. They need to have it. Help me get it on there. My game won't play. So when we get into the technical stuff, if I was teaching you how to build a computer, how to design a motherboard, if this was an engineering class, these are the kinds of questions that I would expect. But this is not an engineering class. This is a consumer-grade electronics item. It's built to consumer levels. It's not built to aerospace engineering, nor is it an experimental computer project in a lab at MIT. That's where these kind of discussions are normal, expected. There's nothing wrong with your questions. They strike me as unusual coming from an end user because I can't understand why you're asking, except that maybe you have an interest in engineering. And there's a lot more to be learned from the engineering side of things than I can teach you because it's not what I do. If it's just a natural curiosity and you're just kind of scraping the surface because you wonder, that's fine. It's just, it strikes me as unusual, that's all. In my line of work, it's just not anything a real customer that's paying me has ever asked me, and I can't understand why they would care. What we deal with primarily is problems. So if the customer has a problem, they ask me to solve it. If the customer's looking at technical specifications and they need me to translate that to them, then I will back up and say, why are you asking? Because if we're not solving a problem and all we're doing is just chit-chatting about the weather, they're being billed for that. And there's nothing I can do to help them. It's more of a private tutoring scenario. You did see the screen blank out and come back. So that tells me my driver installed. At this point now, I should be able to change the resolution without having to wait to restart. Go back to my projector, right click, display settings. No, still hasn't, still not there. Or I have to reboot for that to take effect. So I'm a little surprised. I did expect it to be there, but yeah, that's me being impatient. All right, let me check the emails, and then we're about going to wrap it up for today. It's going to be on 3 hours today. Oh, Mark Gaines with a $25 super chat said, "Here's a few dollars for the channel." Thank you, Mark. And Dennis Hill with a $20 PayPal. He says, "Andy W6AD has a disability. He is a ham." Well, I'm okay with that. I don't think that's a disability. Thanks again to the the Amazon gift card from our friend Buster and Charlie Purdy earlier when the show first started. And everybody else can wait. Good. It's interesting. Sundays are usually pretty slow for me, but every once in a while, a customer will reach out, and yeah, I'll get back to them. So the benefit of us reinstalling Windows 11 is now we know for certain there's nothing unusual on the installer that we're not accustomed to. This is, again, very important for me. If I'm supporting thousands of computers around the world, I ship computers out. Somebody's got a question, they might email me. I was going to say call me, but they're probably not calling me. They could be calling me from within the United States. I don't get too many calls from outside, but I do get lots of emails from outside of the US. And if it's a system I sold them, or a system that they followed my instruction on, I can very quickly answer just about any question. But if they've got something different that I've never seen, it's as much of a guess for me most of the time as it is for them. So one of the first steps I recommend people do if they're running into this issue is to either, like if they're in another part of the world, in another country where there's a different default installer, find somebody who understands that installer in your country. It won't be me. If you don't like that and you want your installer to match mine, then you have to do that and then let me know if the problem you have or the question you have still exists afterwards. But I don't recommend putting on a USA installer in a country that's not the USA. In much the same way, the international installer is kind of a one-size-fits-all, and it varies enough that it's difficult for me to support users if their install from the factory. If I don't modify it, I'm still expected to support it and answer questions. And I might have questions I never even thought of before because I don't deal with an international install personally. I don't have really any hands-on, very little hands-on with it. So before I send a unit out, I will reinstall it to my installer, and likely the questions never come in. That's a way to prevent that from happening. The end user never knows. But if I leave it factory setting and I send it out that way, almost every single time I get a question. Why is this different? Why is it different from the way you show it on camera? I kick myself in the butt. I should have reinstalled it before I sent it out. So it is a rule now that before I send anything out, it won't, say a mini PC, I won't just throw it in the box and ship it anymore. It's come back to bite me in the butt too many times. I'll reset it. I'll take the time. One way or another, I'm either answering a support call that I don't know when it's coming, or I can remove the support call by investing the time beforehand, and then the support call never comes in. And a happy customer is one that doesn't have to make a support call, and a happy Carey is one that isn't doing a support call for free. This cumulative update does take a while to install. And, while I'm waiting, it doesn't hurt me to try. you know, to change the resolution, right click and go to display settings. I'm not interrupting anything. Yeah, it's still shaded out. So my guess is it did install, but it won't take effect until the reboot. And I'm sure when this is done, it's going to say a reboot is necessary. It's almost done. We're at what, 93% of the install. So maybe just a couple more minutes and we should get the notification. When it restarts, I am sure, well, I should say I will be surprised if I can't change my resolution. But until I verify it, anything's possible. But in theory, we should expect similar results with similar actions. The only thing that's different is the mini PC, but everything we're doing with it is the same as if it were any PC. Laptop, desktop, something we built, something we bought, mini PC, doesn't matter. So in a moment here, we're going to be up to 100%. We're getting there real close. Real close. Andy says, I'm not sure that Mr. Holzman understands what a ham is. I'm assuming you're a ham radio operator. There's a certain stereotype that goes along with the ham radio operators. It's not that it's good or bad. It just is. And that comes across to me as a ham radio operator. It's just a very common, if I'm wrong, correct me, but that's certainly what it appears like you guys are talking about. Ham radio is a generation before me. So I grew up with CB radios, but I never grew up with ham radios. I knew a lot of people into ham radios though, and I understand the way they communicate is a little bit, well, it's just like a computer person. Anybody that's into cars or a computer, whatever your enthusiast activity is, you speak the lingo. So I'm saying that lingo is a stereotype, but if it's something different, you know, let me know. That again, it's just before I was born, ham radios were kind of already done by the time I got here. And right around the 70s, it was all about convoys and truckers and CB radios and 10-4 good buddy. And I think one of the reasons for that also as a kid, I couldn't afford a ham radio. Are you kidding me? That stuff's expensive. I did have my first radio or tech show was on shortwave radio. And I don't know if that's the same as ham radio, but I used to be out of a shortwave radio station in Canada, and I would record the shows as an MP3 file, and then I would upload them to them. And then they would air the show at a certain day and time. And I did that for free for fun. And that was on shortwave radio. David said, with ham radio, you can talk around the world. Well, we do that with the internet now. It's a lot less expensive. And the barrier to entry and understanding the, what's the word? The way that you talk to each other. There's not really any rules on the internet. With ham radio, there's a proper procedure and a license and all this other stuff. I honestly, we could also talk to each other with smoke signals if you want to do that too. Maybe you're a smoke signal enthusiast. I'm not telling you not to, but I don't really have any interest in it myself personally. No offense. I just don't care. It doesn't in any way interest me at all. You might as well talk about golf. I just do not care. It has no interest to me. What interests me are what I make my videos on. So if you ask me questions about what I'm making my videos on, I'm interested in your questions. But otherwise, in your hobbies, you enjoy those. I'll enjoy mine. That's all. You might like bass fishing. I mean, go have fun. If I'm not there, start without me. It's all good. You might have a favorite lure. Okay. So almost at the desktop. And then I think if there's any technical related questions, computer related, mini PC related, Windows related questions, I'd be happy to address them before we wrap up. Otherwise, once I get here and change my resolution, that's pretty much it for the show. This review concludes, we have a unit here that I think is a very good value for what you're spending and what you're getting in return. I don't know enough about it. I don't have enough time with it that I would recommend it to a customer as I wouldn't with any other new manufacturer. I just don't know yet. I would rather send a unit out to a viewer who understands they're getting a product I'm not familiar with, so they can tell me what it's like to live with every day, and they didn't pay anything for it, so it's not big heartbreak city if things go sour. On the other hand, if everything comes back good and the viewer says, hey, I'm not having any problems, this thing's great, it may be put on my list of possibilities to offer clients with certain budgets where I can offer it with a little bit more confidence, you know, that it's coming from real experience and not just reviews from strangers online, which may not even be real people. So when I can put it in the hands of somebody I trust and they use it and they can report back, they're doing my work for me. And, you know, when we hear back, we certainly, you guys often see the comments in the chat from products we've sent out, and that's a member's benefit. So if you're a member and you want to be open to that, you know, be a member for a few months. And the longer you're a member, the more qualified you are to receive a gift of a larger value, right? It's all kind of hand in hand with returning the favor. All right, so let's go back to display settings. Wow. So I am still really surprised by this. This is very unexpected. It's not the end of the world, and it's a little confusing because you might say, well, no, the device manager says everything's loaded, right? It says the display driver's loaded. This is where things sometimes get confusing, and this isn't something normal. This isn't something we encounter often. And when we encounter it, is it just a coincidence that it's from a manufacturer that's a smaller brand that maybe doesn't do things to the standards we're accustomed to? Do these things go hand in hand, or is it coincidence? We clearly have a display driver, but which one do we have? We just have a Microsoft basic display driver. So what that tells me is I need to put the AMD display driver on, and we can do that either by, let's say, getting AMD Adrenalin might be the safe way to go. So when we open up Microsoft Edge, you know, I'm very surprised we didn't automatically get this from Windows Update. And who knows, maybe if I go back and check again, it will be offered to us, or I can just take care of it, right? I don't like to wait on automation. I just don't trust it. So if I just type in AMD, we probably just need the chipset driver, but I'm going to type in AMD Adrenalin, because that should do both, I think. And Adrenalin does not have an E on it. The real Adrenalin does, but AMD's trademark marketing name is not an actual word. It's something they made up. But the Google search automatically fixes that error. You'll see Adrenalin does not have an E on it. We'll accept the cookies here, and then we'll go ahead and download the software. And this should take care of everything for us. And if you have an AMD-based system and you've never done this, then you likely don't get the best performance out of your computer or the best security, and you don't know any better. You might say, I'm not having any problems. But then if you download and install this, and you don't need it, it'll tell you you don't need it. If it does install something, you're getting updates that likely are going to result in a noticeable performance difference, maybe quite noticeable, maybe not. It'll be more secure, and any sort of compatibility issues will go away. So if you had some issues with some software acting in a weird way, a lot of times that's resolved through these driver updates that you often do not get offered unless you go looking for them on the AMD side of things. So if we go back to, let's see, let me go full screen here, and I'm going to click on that file we downloaded. It's all free. You just have to have the knowledge to go and get it. And a lot of times when you get a machine from a manufacturer, they've done this for you already. That's part of the fee you're paying for. But if you're building your own or you're resetting your computer, a lot of people leave this out. They have no idea why the machine's not running well, or they think the machine is running well. And then I get it and realize, hey, this is missing. And I put it on there and they go, wow, the machine runs better than it was when it was new. What did you do? I put the drivers on it. I didn't see any drivers missing. I did. I could tell when I couldn't adjust my display settings, the driver's missing. You'd think you'd see a missing driver in the device manager, but Windows is a little confused. Windows is saying, I've given you a driver. Here you go. It's a generic one. It's not lying. But a lot of times, okay, AMD chipset. So this is the chipset software I'm talking about. So it's checking our PC's hardware to verify we have an AMD chipset, and we do, and it wants to put all these drivers in. These would not be checked, these boxes would not be checked if we already had them or if we already had the latest version. So either these are missing or they're old, and that's why it's telling us these are the ones that you need. Whether you need them because they're not there at all or you need them because these are newer versions, either way, just click install. It's not offering you things you don't need. That's what the whole checking is for. If you don't need it, it'll tell you you don't need any of these. Now I can say with confidence, when this is done, we will absolutely be able to change our resolution. Let's stick around and see if I eat my hat. Let me close out the browser. We don't need that open anymore. And then we'll just wait for this to finish and I'll put myself back in the corner here. I just didn't want to cover that download up that was happening in the corner. I wanted you to see that. Okay, we're all done here. And we'll restart. Right click. Display settings. What? Well, I have to eat a hat. Now I'm confused. This is very unusual, mainly because we've already installed the drivers that we backed up. So there is something still missing here. And again, we're not going to get any help from the device manager right here. If we take a look at our display adapter, and I just delete this Microsoft display adapter, I am curious now with all the drivers loaded, will it automatically put the AMD driver on? If so, that's really weird. Look how tiny our resolution got. So, let's see. We'll refresh. And let's see what it says for a display adapter. It's still showing us Microsoft display adapter. Isn't that interesting? We should be seeing the, what was it, the Vega driver, something like that. So one way that I could solve this, you know, when I'm using the AMD automated tool, it usually works, but sometimes you still have to manually override. So if we go back to the AMD drivers page, you know, look, these things happen, and it just, all it's doing is it's making me work harder than I want to work. It'd really be nice when the automation does what it's supposed to do. And this could be a fault of the BIOS setting of the manufacturer of the device, because this is not normal. But the auto detect and install tool is basically what we just ran. So if we just want the drivers for the video, then what we would do is we would go to AMD, I'm going to go back to the Adrenaline again, AMD Adrenaline. And we're going to take a look right here, download software, and then we're going to scroll down and we want graphics for which chip. This is it's probably built into a mobile chipset. So if we look at the chipsets and we're looking at this is basically a laptop chipset. There's basically only one. You know, once you select that, you have no other choice. It's a one size fits all. We want it for Windows 11. It says it's a chipset driver. How is that different from what we put on? Is it different, or are we still going to end up with the same result? It won't hurt anything to try it if we've already got it. It's simply going to override what's already there. But if it's installing something different, then suddenly our video is going to work again. So I will open that, download up, click yes. And then I'm going to close the browser to just kind of keep the clutter away so you can see clearly what I'm doing here. I really didn't see this coming. The automation, I've gotten a little too comfortable with it, and you just can't trust automation. Whether the manufacturer's adjusted something in the BIOS, something that triggers that detection is missing. And that's not normal the case, but just because it's not there doesn't mean you can't still use your brain and fill that in yourself. It's just nice when you don't have to. So once again, it's checking to see if we have any qualifying hardware for the chipset driver. So if this was an Intel system or if this wasn't a laptop-based chipset, it's going to say, this isn't for you, I'm not going any further. This looks very familiar, like we already did this, but it's possible the chipset is so old that AMD has removed it from the auto installer. It's also possible the BIOS is not set up correctly from the manufacturer for the software identify. It may be just a result of age. That's where I'm kind of leaning right now. I don't know. But if you look and see, we will identify that here in just a moment. Hit close. Now, interestingly, it's not requiring a reboot, which I would assume it would want, but let me just take a quick look. Source projector and back to device manager. What I want to see is that Radeon graphics card in the display adapter, and it's still not there. So I'm going to, once again, I'm going to refresh this. Still not there. I delete that driver, uninstall the Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, and then we refresh the device manager to look for new drivers, just to see if it's going to modify that. Sort of forces it to look again. We're still at the Microsoft Basic Display Driver. Another thing we can do is just hit the driver button here, update the driver manually, search automatically, and search on Windows Update as well, and see if Windows Update will locate that for us. Which, again, I'm not a big fan of doing it this way, but the older the computer is, the more likely you're going to have to deal with this. So I'm kind of glad we got this at the end of the video, because if you're not reinstalling the OS, this is not an issue for you. It was already there. However, you should be able to reinstall and know what to expect and what makes it different, and it's likely due to age. So we're getting an antivirus option here, but as for advanced, do we have any drivers offered in here? 0. And if we look up which graphics driver this system comes with, right, this becomes more and more manual, because we get too lazy, honestly, as a society. We get dumber because we're trusting the technology. And then when the technology lets us down and we don't have any experience or knowledge, we don't know what to do. This is really just takes us back a few years before the technology advanced. We used to put all this stuff on by hand. And, you know, I'm as spoiled as the next person. I kind of like, oh, I got to do this the old-fashioned way. So what's the old-fashioned way? The old-fashioned way is you look at what the CPU has. So for example, in the old days, you just look at your graphics card, right? But now it's built into the CPU. I can't just look at it and see what it is. So I have to go, let me go full screen here, and then right-click on System, and we'll see which CPU we have. Okay, Ryzen 5 3550H with Radeon Vega mobile graphics, right? So I'm going to open a browser, and I'm going to type in Radeon Vega mobile GFX drive. Look, I don't even have to type it in all the way. I'm not the only one. So this says Ryzen 3 drivers. Oh, that's interesting. So they have drivers specifically for the GPU. If I click on that link, I'll bet you there's one. Let's go back one page. This is, what did I say? It was a Ryzen 5 3550H, and this is 3200U. I'll bet you it's the same driver. I'll bet you. I'm going to hit download. See, the date is even different. The date on the previous one on the chipset was June. This is this month, just a few days ago. So whatever this is, it's newer, and it's within the same family of chip, even though the N letter is different. That could make a difference. I don't think it's going to. It's not going to hurt anything. Again, if we don't have any qualifying hardware, it will refuse to install. Let's find out. That looks very different, doesn't it? It came up twice. I ended up clicking it, and I was impatient. I clicked it again. That's why you saw the same screen twice. I got rid of the second one. I don't need this running simultaneously competing with itself. Okay, so something went wrong. The AMD software installer detected AMD graphics that's not supported. Hey, you know what? No harm, no foul. So again, if I look back at my, because I thought, okay, I'm trying to take shortcuts. I'm trying to keep it, trying to still be as lazy as possible. It's not working. Now I'm working harder than I needed to work. So we have an AMD AMD Ryzen 5 3550H graphics driver. Let's see, right there. There are specific drivers just for this chip. So if I bring that down and click on this, am I getting something different? This looks like the same date. It looks like the same file. So I'm a little confused. Are we not downloading the, yeah, there's a number 1 after it. It's the exact same 3550H. Hold on. Do we have a different letter? Ryzen 5 3550H with Radeon Vega graphics. That is the chip. And it's the same file. It's exactly the same file we've already downloaded. Let me try one more time. That's weird. That should be it right there. Definitely final answer. Detecting your system configuration for driver and compatibility. Something went wrong. All right, so let's restart and try one more time. Perhaps one of the previous installs I've done isn't completed, and it won't start a new install until the error messages are very vague. This is why I don't trust postcodes on motherboard or error codes coming from diagnostic cards, because they're often giving you the reports of the symptoms instead of the causes. And if you're chasing after symptoms instead of chasing after causes, you're going to be chasing a while. So this got a real interesting turn in it. However, when I think about it, given the age of the CPU, they did things differently back then. Now it's changed. So we're back to the, you see the screen resolution has changed back. And if I look at the device manager, it's probably still going to say we've got that Microsoft display adapter, which is sort of a generic all size, one size fits all. Yeah. So now we'll go back to our downloads folder. Let's try that one more time and see if it consistently reports back that something's not right. So it's just a question of how hard do I want to work today? Stuff like this really shouldn't be a problem, and it's another reason to go ahead and image your system, do an image backup, because this is not working for us. And I would say maybe the next step would be to try and find the manufacturer's website, which I don't know that we can, I mean, I haven't looked, but I don't need the USB stick in here anymore, so we'll take that out. And let me come back over here. And Getorli is the name of the manufacturer. Let's see if they have drivers or even a website. That's usually a good thing to check anyway. Getorli. Screen here. Getorli. Getorli drivers. Yeah, it's pulled up Georgia. It thinks I misspelled Georgia. If we go back to the Adrenaline driver we installed earlier, which is right here, what will it say now when we try to put it in a second time? AMD installer detected AMD graphics hardware in your system configuration that is not supported. This is critical to solving this problem. That error message is very important. If we open up, let's just go to Google and type in error 182 AMD Ryzen 5 3550H. There's information. It indicates it cannot detect compatible hardware, meaning the driver or software you're trying to install and design. Da, 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 da. It could be the manufacturer has a customized driver. Here's a video that says how to fix this in 3 steps from 3 years ago. I don't know, that might be right. This suggests performing a clean install, but this is a clean install. Install customized driver, clean install. Clean up utility. Go to the AMD website. Run the cleanup utility. So it's possible that maybe the Adrenaline software conflicted with it. System file, well, we know we have a clean install, that's not a problem. Corrupted graphic, run the AMD cleanup utility. Using the AMD cleanup utility for Windows. Okay, that downloads up here behind my picture. What is that going to do? Okay. Normally, pretty simple annoyance to resolve. I'm a little out of practice, so, bear with me, I'll get there. I have handled this before, I just cannot remember what I did. And it's always on older machines. This process is going to remove, okay. Removing drivers, applications, and utilities. It's likely the adrenaline driver that caused this problem, and what I should have done is downloaded the chipset driver for this specific CPU, because that's the way AMD used to distribute their drivers. And it looks like there's a little backwards compatibility issue that AMD is not recognizing when their drivers conflict, the modern ones conflict with the older ones. And that's why you can't trust them to automate that and check it for you. So the cleanup utility is finished cleaning, and now it wants to reboot. So we're going to go ahead and let that reboot with the drivers clean. And now we should be able to put the Ryzen 5 3550H driver on. And hopefully that works now. Otherwise, we continue to dig. We know there's nothing wrong with the computer. We didn't have this problem before we reinstalled Windows. So who caused the problem? It's not necessarily the manufacturer's fault, and it's not necessarily AMD's fault, just so you know. It's just the way they used to do it. Or it's still a way they can choose to do it, for that matter, but it's not going to be the same as the latest and greatest. So if we go back down here to Device Manager, I'm curious if we see anything missing. Everything still looks okay. So I would go back to put that Ryzen 5 driver back on, not the adrenaline driver, because I think that's what screwed us up. And I really wish the adrenaline driver would have said, hey, wrong driver, buddy. So this one right here was the WHQL adrenaline. It's still an adrenaline driver, but it's not the adrenaline auto installer, which is what I used. And you'll see that the installation screen is a little tiny thing versus the big screen we got before with that auto installer. The auto installer usually works, so I don't mind if every once in a while it's a little different. When this pops up now, no, it's still not going to happen. AMD software detected AMD graphics. It's not supported. Okay. I'm going to try something a little different. And, what I'm showing you are all the old school ways of going through the typical way of resolving this. And I know the answer is simple, and I just cannot remember how I did it before. So what I'm going to try and do is make my life a little easier, and I'm going to jump over to Copilot. And I'm going to ask Copilot, how can I fix error 182 Ryzen 5 3550H? Avoid auto detect tools. Yeah, really? Thanks. The AMD auto detect utility often triggers error 182 because it doesn't recognize custom or embedded graphics setups. Instead, manually download the correct driver. Great. Thanks for that. So it wants me to use the display driver uninstaller, or DDU, in safe mode to remove all of those wrong drivers that the auto installer just put on. But I think there was an easier way. I'm going to go over back to the AMD drivers and support page and look for processors, and then look for no, I mean, this goes back Ryzen embedded. That's what we have. Ryzen embedded 8000 R series, R5000 series. And this is for Linux only. Okay, that's not going to help me. Let me take a quick look over in the chat, see if anybody's yelling at me. Andy says I could not install the AMD Adrenalin on my Huawei P5 3500. Right, exactly. Because it's still a 3500 processor. That 3500 processor was released years ago. When was Ryzen 3550H CPU released? 2019, so 6 years ago. So AMD has moved on. The drivers are still there, but they're not included in the automated installer. It's no longer something they're continuing support on, but the support that they stopped with is still available, so you can continue to use the hardware, but they're not putting any more money into this, basically. So that puts a lot of work back onto the end user to know what you're doing, specifically with that CPU. It doesn't apply to others. It's just at a certain age, and depending on the manufacturer, if we were to look at, if we know another manufacturer that uses this, so you mentioned the Huawei P5, if we look at Huawei P5 driver download, it should be the same driver. So the question is, does a different manufacturer make the same specs, mini PC, or the same chipset? If so, we can steal the driver, we can borrow the driver from another manufacturer. So let's take a look at Huawei's page, and let's see if they have a driver download for the P5. That will likely work the same on this one. Even though these two companies, I guess they don't have any relationship to each other, or for all we know, they're owned by the same parent company and made in the same factory. I don't know. So if I take a look here for, let's see, on their page, do they have drivers? Drivers and support. Not seeing it. So let me just keep looking a little bit. Whoa, that's World of Warcraft. No, thank you. Huawei P5 driver download. I get the crucial P5 NVMe download. Install Ryzen 5 3550H drivers Windows 11. Let's see if I can find a different source. We're going to go to the, I'm going to try going back to the AMD support page. I know you guys aren't seeing this, but I'm just going to vocalize what I'm doing here because I'm tried to wrap this up a half an hour ago before I had this unexpected issue. Visit the AMD support page. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, well, I guess, let's do this. Let's go back over here. And we go full screen. Processors. Ryzen. I was thinking it was a 5000. It's a Ryzen 3000 series. It's a Ryzen 5, 3550, not a Ryzen 5 5550. Drivers and support, nothing. Nothing here. Well, that was useful. Thank you, AMD. I don't understand. I'm so confused. How about legacy? Is Vega in here? No. Even Radeon 5000 series. Well, we're on Ryzen, not Radeon. So it's not a graphics driver we're looking for. It's actually, because it's part of the CPU, it's a processor driver. Should be. Processors. Maybe we got to look under laptop processors, mobile processors, Ryzen embedded, that's right. But Ryzen embedded does not show a 3550. It shows a V3000, but we don't have that. So I guess it's not embedded. Not there. Search for your product. 3550H. Oh, wrong keyboard. 3550H. It really shouldn't be under it should be under processors. What good is oh, wait a minute, what's this? Still wants us to download this Adrenaline driver that we've already done. So interesting. That is very interesting. And I think our power settings went back. That's why the screen went to black. I think that's exactly what happened. Close that. I think we're just going around in circles. It's the same file 3 times we've downloaded this. So yeah, I might have to run DDU. It's definitely got something installed from the auto installer that's interfering with putting the right driver on. So a couple of ways we can fix this. One, I need to spend a little bit more time to figure out where this is coming from. There are some YouTube videos that claim they show how to fix this. However, the other thing we could do, and I'm not sure this is going to work, but if we look under the installed applications, it may be as simple as uninstalling that Radeon driver rather than forcefully cleaning it out with like DDU. That's possible. You see this AMD chipset software? That could be causing us all the grief right there. Maybe. There's something that's in the way that this is a problem with AMD's software. We're going to uninstall all of that. Normally we would reboot, but for the sake of experimentation here, you know, on the one hand, it's telling us to put this on, which I think is what got us in trouble to begin with. On the other hand, the other support side is saying to put on a different driver, to put on the Ryzen 5 driver separately. And, you know, AMD should get with the program here and stay out of their own way. But I guess AMD says, look, you're using a processor that's 6 years old. This is what you get. I don't agree with that. They don't want to spend any money to fix it. So you sort of have to go back into the archive and pull the right driver. And I just think it's a terrible attitude from AMD. Anytime you run a processor this old with AMD, this is common. I've already encountered this before, and I just can't remember what I did to fix it, that I know it wasn't a big deal. I shouldn't have had, I mean, the auto installers should be smart enough to handle that for me. AMD has a ways to go on their software development. They make a good CPU, but their software is, you know, needs a little more refinement for my preferences. AMD changed the way that they choose how they treat their embedded graphics. It used to be part of the chipset. Now it's part of the adrenaline driver, and then the adrenaline driver then contains optionally the chipset drivers. So they're doing it backwards from the way they used to do it, and then they're not sort of interweaving the two together for compatibility. It's one or the other. And so with a modern day Intel CPU, with a modern day AMD CPU, you would just download the Adrenalin software. This is an important distinction, especially on a cheaper computer, that you may be buying hardware that, even though it's new, is older. And while I did mention that in the beginning, I never looked up exactly how old. I figured about three years old. It's actually 6 years old. As a result, it's not under a big demand. And as a result, it doesn't have a high price. Supply and demand is going to dictate price. The less expensive it is, the less people desire it. So they're going to get as much as they can get out of it. So if they can get $150 out of it and that's all they can get, that's all they're going to ask for. On the other hand, we did back up the drivers. So in theory, when I put all the drivers back, we should have never had this issue. That is, once again, an AMD-related idiosyncrasy, especially going back a few years. It's pretty common to run into this on older machines from AMD only. That being said, just set your expectations. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, and I'm not criticizing it. Just telling you as it is, right? That's just how it is. It's nothing unique about this computer. That's the way all these 3550s are, or computers of this generation or earlier. And so, you know, once I have the answer here, it shouldn't be a problem. And you would think that if there was a needed driver, we do have 2 HDMI ports, right? Just out of curiosity. Does that make any difference? Probably shouldn't. It's not auto sensing. That's another problem you can have with these machines, is they may not auto sense, meaning that if you change monitors while the machine is on, most machines will automatically sense and adjust. On a machine like this, though, at its lower price point, you're going to have to leave the monitor plugged into the port you want, and the only time it makes that detection is at boot up. So we're going to restart it with the monitor plugged into the other HDMI port, because I'm curious if that other HDMI port says, hey, I'm a Vega graphics card. Could it be that symbol? That would not be normal, and I don't expect that to work, but I need to try it. No. And again, if we go to look at the drivers, if I copy the drivers off of the flash drive, which I should have already done anyway, normally once you install those drivers, you're done with drivers. So let's take these and let's make them part of this computer, because I won't remember which drivers those are for, because it just says drivers. But if it's on the machine they belong to, then I know exactly what they're for. So we'll paste those in here real quick. And once again, if I go back to the device manager, and just out of curiosity, and again, just out of morbid curiosity, I get rid of this driver, uninstall it, and then I click on anything here. Let's add drivers. We'll browse to the downloads directory. To drivers. Click OK. See what it does. It's finding something. Isn't that interesting? Because normally if it already has all the drivers in it, it would say, there's nothing here. You've already got all the latest drivers. The fact it's found some, I don't know what it is, but it found something. They could be older chipset drivers that we just replaced with newer ones, and now we just put older ones back on. It's not supposed to. And let's restart, see what it does. I mean, I'm throwing darts at the wall at this point. The real way to diagnose this would be to get my butt off the camera, focus on the research, whether I'm looking on Reddit or looking on Copilot or looking at other videos, to identify which thing makes sense to me, and it'd probably resolve in 5 minutes. But me trying to do this live on camera is much more distracting, and it loses my focus, and it just makes it harder than it needs to be. But I am very curious if that made any difference whatsoever. No. I mean, it did something, but I have no idea. And everything looks fine when it's clearly not fine when it's using the Microsoft display driver. All right, well, there you go. I'll report back what I find. We'll cover that on Monday's video. I'll work on it tonight. I have to run a few errands today, so I can't stick around any longer. I gave it my best shot while we're live. And sometimes you just got to know when to take a little time away from it. And when I come back to it, it'll be real easy. Because I've already dealt with this before. It's really, I remember it was really easy. I just don't remember what it was. But it is a pretty common occurrence to run into unusual obstacles on these budget machines, primarily because of their age, right? So as long as you get it set up the first time and make an image backup, you don't have to worry about remembering it next time. Just restore your image backup. I don't work with many 3550s, and because of that, I don't remember what I did to fix it. For better or for worse, it is what it is. I think there's a file. I want to say there was a file I had to delete, but I just can't remember. Either way, I'll figure it out, and then I'll follow up with it with you at another time. And I appreciate everybody hanging out with me today. Thank you for all your support, your contributions. Thank you for the members making these videos possible. Thank you to Getorli for sending this to us for review. We would have never known this had we not reinstalled it. So the install was fine. It was just an international install. It's just a personal preference I don't care for. I also don't care for the word processor they put on. That's, to me, it's unwelcome. For me personally, there's nothing actually wrong with that. Someone might find value in that. I don't. And by reinstalling, we found an issue here that is I think justifies the entire video, just to be aware of. And I will also take a closer look at Getorli's website and verify if they have a support section, because there just could be a driver right there we can download. Or we can look at Minis Forum or Ace Magic or any other mini PC manufacturer who sells a mini PC with a Ryzen 5 3550H and use their driver. They're all going to be the same in that regard. They may have different network cards and different Wi-Fi and different sound cards, but if they're using the Ryzen 5 3550H processor, they will all be using the same driver. So that way we can kind of grab it from over there. And you should be able to grab it directly from AMD. But I've obviously made some kind of a mistake. So I'll figure out what that is, and when I do, I'll let you know. In the meantime, thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoy what remainder of the weekend you have. It's back to the grind tomorrow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.